Chapter 328. Goatee felt his scalp go numb. He never imagined that this bastard Ning Qin would actually dare to be so heavy-handed in front of everyone's eyes. But this was also good. Attacking a participating cultivator had caused him to be seriously injured. Just this alone meant that no one could save him. Compared to that, the price that little Zhang had to pay was nothing. At most, he would just have to make up for it later. A trace of complacency flashed in his eyes, but soon after, grief appeared on his face. He squeezed his eyes and tears flowed down. "My brother, you're really too miserable." Goatee rushed to the side of the cauldron and hugged little Zhang as he cried. He used a bit of force to touch the wound, and Zhang Mao's howls suddenly became even louder. This scene was truly heartbreaking to see and tearful to hear. Hee, this is the effect I want. No matter what, I will first stand on the moral high ground, then wait for an opportunity to act. The cultivators of philosophy watch all rushed forwards, all of them looking as if they couldn't live under the same sky as old Zhang. But the truth was that this was all bark and no bite. After seeing old Zhang's fate, they didn't want to suffer the same fate. Furthermore, they had already achieved their goal. Whoosh whoosh, with the sound of something tearing through the air, over 10 official cultivators arrived. They were all dressed in armor, and their eyes were cold. They were the police that the competition officials had arranged. "How dare you? You really have some guts. During the competition, you actually dare to kill in public." A high-level police cultivator coldly waved his hand. "Take them away." The eyes of the surrounding cultivators immediately turned serious. No matter where it was, the reaction of the police was always extremely slow. Today, the incident had just happened, and a divine soldier descended from the heavens and caught him red-handed. No one would believe that there was nothing fishy going on. For a time, everyone fell silent. Even some female cultivators that supported Qin Yu didn't dare to speak up. Qin Yu took out his phone. "Wait, I have evidence. He was the one who kept attacking me just now. I kept dodging." Unfortunately, there was no chance for the recording to be played. The senior police cultivator sneered, "Is this what you mean by hiding? Boy, you're quite ruthless. What are you waiting for? Capture him." Qin Yu took a step back. "Officer, I'm not the one who did it. Why are you arresting me?" The high-level police cultivator's eyes turned cold. "Do you want to resist law enforcement?" Qin Yu lightly said, "I am only stating the facts." He pointed a finger. "The pill furnace is the official pill furnace. It took the initiative to suppress this person. Am I to be blamed for that? What a nuisance. If it weren't for you, how could a mere pill furnace injure someone?" Qin Yu turned and said, "I have evidence." At this time, many people's eyes widened in shock. What evidence could he possibly have? Could it be that he could have the pill furnace testify for him? However, what happened next caused everyone to subconsciously open their mouths in shock. "Pill furnace, tell them, did you do it yourself? If so, open the lid." Quang, the lid was opened and closed. In the face of Qin Yu's innocent expression, the senior police officer's mouth opened so wide that he could swallow 10 eggs. At this moment, he was filled with regret. If he knew that this would happen, he would have directly taken him down. Even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't have given Qin Yu the chance to say these words. However, it seemed a little too late to do so now. The goatee man clenched his teeth and began to cry out loud. "Officer, this must be Ning Qin's trick. He must have done something. If you capture him and interrogate him, the truth will definitely be revealed." The high-level police cultivator's eyes brightened. The order he received was to capture Ning Qin no matter what. It didn't matter what reason he used. Ning Qin, you are involved in a case of assault. Come with us. Two police cultivators had already arrived in front of Qin Yu, their complexions grim. Bang! On the ground, the pill furnace suddenly flew up. The unlucky Zhang Mao's eyes rolled back in his head and he fainted. Then, that blood-stained pill furnace with a threatening slaughter intent hurtled towards the two police cultivators. Caught off guard, the two police cultivators lifted their hands to defend themselves. But they were sent tumbling away like gourds. How dare you! Ning Qin, you dare to attack a police officer. The high-level police cultivator paled. Qin Yu shook his head. Officer, it was the pill furnace that went crazy, it has nothing to do with me. Since you are so impatient to pin a crime on my head, I can't help but suspect that because of what happened before, you are trying to persecute me. Huluan Hehe nearly blew up his lungs in anger. There was actually such a stupid pig in the police system. This was clearly an incomparably simple matter, but it had actually escalated to such a degree. He couldn't continue like this, otherwise who knew what sort of chaos would occur. Capture that pill furnace. With a loud shout, Lord Huluan Hehe appeared. His purple official robes fluttered in the wind, his aura threatening. Whoosh, whoosh, several official masters rushed out. They lifted their hands and formed a net that covered the entire pill furnace, forcefully imprisoning it. Huluan Hehe's eyes flashed like lightning. Ning Qin, you are suspected of controlling the pill furnace and attacking the police cultivators, as well as affecting the competition. Men, capture Qin Yu and detain him for interrogation. Several powerful auras locked onto Qin Yu. Any movement would draw in their all-out attacks. Qin Yu sighed inwardly. As he thought, everything had happened because of this Lord Huluan Hehe. But, he really couldn't understand why a high official of the South Shine Nation would target him at every turn. At this time, Qin Yu felt a bit of regret. He hadn't left as soon as he sensed something was wrong. However, he feared that he had already been locked onto by Huluan Hehe. Even if he wanted to leave, he might not have the chance. Luckily, he was detained in public today. The South Shine Nation officials would have to give an explanation for this matter and wouldn't directly embarrass him. He could only take things one step at a time. As for resisting, Qin Yu admitted that he had such a thought, but it only lasted for a moment before he suppressed it. What nonsense! If he resisted now, how was that any different from seeking death? Don't look at how he had a divine soul realm cultivation and wasn't considered weak in the land of divinity and demons. But if he stood on the opposite side of a country, he would be crushed into slag at any moment. Of course, this was because his life wasn't in danger. If he were facing death, Qin Yu might have made a different choice. Seeing Qin Yu surrender, Huluan Hehe's eyes flashed with disappointment. He waved his hand and two subordinates shot towards Qin Yu. At this time, bang, there was a heaven-shaking explosion. The net that trapped the pill furnace was violently blown apart. The 10-foot-high furnace began to grow at an astonishing speed once more. In the blink of an eye, it had reached an astonishing 100 feet. Growing to such a degree, the cracks that covered the furnace body became increasingly fierce. They connected together, making one wonder just how this pill furnace that should have been smashed to pieces was still preserved. In particular, as the pill furnace grew, the aura it emitted also rose to a shocking degree. In that instant, the void seemed to surge like a raging sea. The originally clear skies began to darken at a speed visible to the naked eye. Strong winds rose up, sweeping up the sand and stones on the ground. They blew in all directions, pressing down on the surroundings of the competition field. In the wilderness, countless ancient trees began to bend down. Yunilon frowned, awakening from his thoughts. His eyes flashed and he smiled. Revered Ming, revered Yuan, please wait a moment. I have some minor matters to deal with. He stood up and took a step forward, vanishing from sight. A strange light flashed in Yuan Tiangong's eyes. Such an aura is actually emitted by a pill furnace. How curious. At this time, Ming Siyuan also had a plan in mind. He lightly said, "Then let's go take a look." "Ah, great." Yuan Tiangang teleported away. Ming Siyuan took a deep breath and followed close behind. Huluan Hehe's complexion paled. He never thought that such a scene would occur. Now, he could almost confirm that this pill furnace wasn't activated by Ning Qin. He didn't have the courage nor did he have the strength. He looked up into the skies, at the broken yet heaven-shaking pill furnace, and his heart shook. Who would have thought that such a broken pill furnace would actually possess such astonishing strength? As he was hesitating about what to do, a figure suddenly appeared in his line of sight. Huluan Hehe hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, Exalted Yun." "Greetings, Exalted Yun." All the official cultivators respectfully bowed. In the surrounding area, countless cultivators lowered their heads, expressing their awe and respect towards this Blue Sea Realm's supermaster. Yunilan's eyes flashed. He looked at Qin Yu. "Little friend Ning Qin, can you have it stop first?" Qin Yu hesitated for a moment. He cupped his hands together and bowed. "Exalted Yun, this junior would like to know whether or not I can continue participating in the competition." Yunilan was startled. He never thought that this junior would be able to maintain his calm in front of him. A look of appreciation appeared in his eyes. He lightly said, "Of course you can." With his status, there was no reason for him to lie. Qin Yu relaxed. "Thank you, Exalted Yun." He looked up and said, "It's fine now. You can stop." In the air, the 100-foot pill furnace suddenly restrained its aura. It rapidly shrank and fell into Qin Yu's body. But it was unknown if it had consumed too much strength or if there was some other reason, but as the pill furnace flew towards him, it suddenly fell down, nearly smashing into Yunilan's head. It brushed past his hair and ruffled his neatly combed hair. Qin Yu's heart leapt into his throat. If he really struck it, he had no idea what his fate would be. He would definitely be implicated. Yunilan's lips curved up in an imperceptible smile. This pill furnace was warning him. It seemed that it really valued this junior. This was quite strange. He had no idea just what special characteristics this junior had that it could attract him so much. His thoughts raced and he immediately suppressed them. Yunilan lightly said, "Today's matter ends here. Let's continue the competition." He turned and cupped his hands together. "Revered Ming, revered Yuan, how about we continue?" Yuan Tiangang deeply looked at Qin Yu and laughed. "All right." Ming Siyuan's eyes were much more restrained. But only those familiar with him could see the solemnity in his expression. As the young master said, that fellow Taoist Baoyu had most likely come for the treasure furnace's remnant spirit. Although a person with the qualifications to be a reincarnated deva shouldn't care about a treasure of this level, there might be some other reason. Thus, Ming Siyuan had been secretly searching for that fellow Taoist Baoyu. Unfortunately, he hadn't found anything in the past several days until today. Others might not know about this pill furnace, but with his and Yuan Tiangong's status, he naturally knew about the pill furnace that was being raised within the pill furnace pagoda. If Ning Qin was able to awaken it and draw it closer to him and protect it on its own initiative, there was an extremely high chance that he was the fellow Taoist Baoyu that he had been searching for. His thoughts raced, but his expression didn't change at all. Ming Siyuan turned and teleported away with the other two. But it was clear that after today's events, Qin Yu had entered the field of vision of 3 Blue Sea Realm supermasters with a completely different status and weight. The wind blew away. White Feng Feng was shocked. "Stupid cousin, did you see that? That person on the 9th level is actually him." She shook her head again and again, an expression as if she never expected this to happen. Black Bebe's complexion was heavy. Foam, it looks like you'll have another opponent. Although I don't know why this person has been patiently enduring all this time, since he has the help of the treasure furnace, you absolutely cannot underestimate him in the following matches. In truth, he had also thought of what revered Ming had thought of. But, Qin Yu had a completely unfamiliar appearance, so he didn't say anything. After all, they were about to enter a critical match. No matter what, he couldn't distract White Fong. White Fong frowned. She originally thought it would be difficult to defeat Zhao Jiutian, but now this Ning Qin had jumped out from nowhere. The pressure on her was far too great. Zhao Jiutian's complexion was ugly. He coldly snorted and turned to leave. So what if he obtained the treasure furnace from the 9th level? He didn't believe he would lose to him. Chapter 329. With Yunilan's words, this matter had been decided. Lord Huluan Hehe's complexion alternated between blue and white. He glanced at Qin Yu and then flicked his sleeves and left. The security cultivators all awkwardly left. The female cultivators were thinking that their big brother Ning Qin was fierce. As for the male cultivators, they felt sour in their hearts. Just what kind of dog's hit luck did this brat have? The people from Philosophy Watch had become clowns at this time. They had played out a farce and most of their people had been crippled, but in the end they hadn't lost anything. Now, everyone knew that Exalted Yunilan was interested in Ning Qin. Even if Philosophy Watch had 100 times more courage, they still wouldn't dare to make any moves in the future. The goateed man's lips moved several times, but he couldn't squeeze out a smile. Together with the several Philosophy Watch cultivators, he was about to cry. But at this time, Qin Yu didn't feel any joy or pride in his heart. Rather, he was completely silent. He was well aware that if it weren't for the sudden change in the pill furnace, Yunilan wouldn't have interfered. If so, his fate today wouldn't have been too good. Looking at it from another angle, Yunilan had appeared without warning. It seemed as if he had protected Qin Yu from today's disaster, but with his status it was impossible for him to act without reason. What was it for? Qin Yu felt that the greatest possibility was this pill furnace in his hands that liked to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger, a pill furnace of extremely low character. Originally, he only hoped to obtain first place in the competition and help the fleeting flame cauldron obtain the treasure cauldron's remnant spirit before leaving. But how did things start to go out of control? Huluan Hehe's hostility was one thing, but Yunilan's attention was the true weight of Mount Tai. He sighed inwardly and suppressed these thoughts. Under the gazes of countless people, he arrived at the martial field of the 4th stage. The venue was still the same as before, but the low wooden huts had been completely demolished and replaced with earth attribute spells. Wide yellow stone huts had been built. The official announced the rules. The 4th round will determine the final rankings. In other words, everyone here has already entered the finals. These words caused many of the participating cultivators to reveal looks of excitement. Actually, before the competition started, they were very clear that they didn't have the qualifications to compete for the final ranking with their strength, and they were already satisfied to be able to step into the finals. By relying on their status as finalists of the South Shine Nation's official tournament, their future road of cultivation would be much easier. After all, the tens of thousands of cultivators that were participating in the competition practically covered all the experts of the younger generation, so those that were able to become eminent and fight their way into the 4th round would absolutely be praised as young geniuses. For this round of alchemy, you will need to use the materials you exchanged for in the 3rd stage to refine. You will be ranked according to the grade and effect of the alchemy pills. Today's competition will last for a total of 3 days. This official wishes everyone a successful refinement. The match began. Qin Yu followed the sign and smoothly found his stone house. He pushed open the door and entered. As usual, he carefully scanned the place with his divine sense. When he didn't find anything wrong, he took out an array disc and set up an array formation in the stone house. The demon puppet pill was an extremely unpopular pill. This was the first time Chin-Yu had come into contact with it, and he didn't have any experience in refining it. But in his heart, he had some confidence he could succeed. This pill required the eternal night demon mushroom to suck in blood and then refine all three into one. After inquiring about the demon puppet pill, Chin-Yu knew that the quality of one's blood greatly affected the chances of successfully refining the pill. He had formed the demon body and also obtained Ning Ling's demonic blood. This was greatly beneficial to refining the demon puppet pill. Secondly, it was because of the pill furnace in front of him. Although he didn't know where it came from, since it was able to alarm Yunilon, he knew it was no trifling matter. In addition, he had used it to refine pills dozens of times before without a single failure. Chin-Yu recognized the pill furnace's abilities. He laid down the pill furnace and took out 7 eternal night demon mushrooms. Chin-Yu wasn't in a hurry to refine them. His eyebrows furrowed together and his eyes flashed. It was unknown what he was thinking. After several breaths of time, Chin-Yu took a deep breath. He said in a low voice, "Pill furnace, I know you can understand my words, so I'll get straight to the point. You must have your reasons for choosing me out of everyone here. I admit that I have my own secrets, but I cannot trust you. So, unless you can give me a sufficient guarantee, I am willing to lose today's competition rather than refine pills." The little blue lamp was too important a matter. He absolutely couldn't allow the slightest risk of being exposed. Otherwise, with Chin-Yu's current cultivation, he would be torn to pieces at any moment. Although these words contained an element of threat towards the pill furnace, if the pill furnace pretended to be crazy, Chin-Yu would treat it as the truth. After a moment of silence, the pill furnace suddenly shook. With a faint hum, faint traces of light seeped out from the furnace, condensing into a sphere of light in the air. One could see countless tiny characters tumbling within this sphere of light. Unfortunately, these characters were extremely strange. Even if one could clearly see them, they still wouldn't know what they meant. Kacha, with a light sound, a new crack appeared on the surface of the pill furnace. Although it was small and it didn't seem too remarkable when it was covered in wounds, it still caused Chin-Yu's heart to skip a beat. His intuition told him that in order to create this sphere of light, the pill furnace had paid a considerable price. Moreover, he didn't feel any threat from this pill furnace. After a moment of hesitation, Chin-Yu lifted his hand and probed the sphere of light. In the next moment, countless pieces of information were branded into Chin-Yu's mind, allowing him to understand that this sphere of light was an extremely ancient contract that had been signed the moment he touched it. This contract didn't have any strict requirements. It was just that the signing party absolutely couldn't have the slightest intention of harming the other party, otherwise they would trigger a backlash from the contract and die without a doubt. The sphere of light had already vanished. Through the contract, Chin-Yu could faintly feel the boundless aura coming from the pill furnace. However, this aura was fragmented and only barely managed to gather together. He was able to mobilize less than 1% of its strength. Even this 1% was able to display such might. In the future, if the pill furnace could be restored to its original state, then it would be unimaginable. Chin-Yu suppressed the shaking in his heart. He cupped his hands together and said, "Since Brother Pill Furnace has expressed your sincerity, I naturally won't speak any further. The first place of this competition will inevitably belong to you and me. Of course, the premise of this is that Brother Pill Furnace is generous enough not to eat the demon puppet pill. After all, both you and I only have one set of materials today." Poop flames ignited on their own, guiding heaven and earth's spiritual strength to pour in. The mouth of the furnace opened, clearly tacitly agreeing to this. Chin-Yu faintly smiled. He took out the first Eternal Night Demon mushroom and tossed it into the pill furnace with a flick of his sleeves. To use the Eternal Night Demon mushroom to drink blood, it naturally wasn't as simple as pouring the blood over it. Rather, it needed to be refined in the pill furnace to remove all the impurities on the surface of the Eternal Night Demon mushroom, only retaining the pure medicinal efficacy before fusing it with the blood. Everything went smoothly. The Eternal Night Demon mushroom in the pill furnace soon turned into a pitch-black pure liquid. Chinyu flicked his finger and a crack appeared on his fingertip. Several drops of blood flew out and were sucked into the pill furnace. His face paled a little, but after several breaths of time, this paleness rapidly faded and his complexion became rosy once more. In refining the demon puppet pill, the quality of one's blood was extremely important. Although he had the little blue lamp in hand, the land of divinity and demons was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Chinyu had to be careful. Thus, what he used now was his own blood essence. Every drop was incomparably precious, and only those who cultivated the demon body wouldn't care about losing a portion of their blood essence. If it were any other alchemist, they would never dare to do this. Of course, refining the demon body was one aspect, but the more important reason was that he had many pills in his hands. Otherwise, if he relied on his mortal body to recover on its own, it would take him several months or even longer to recover his blood essence. He continued to refine. The 3 Eternal Night Demon mushrooms were soon full of blood. They floated in front of Chinyu, their mottled black and red colors emitting a strange and eerie atmosphere. Chinyu wasn't in a hurry to refine them. He closed his eyes and meditated for 4 hours, replenishing himself with a massive number of pills. Once his condition was restored, he slowly opened his eyes. A sharp light flashed. He lifted a hand and touched the pill furnace. The 3 Eternal Night Demon mushrooms flew in and the flames within the pill furnace instantly rose, drawing in heaven and earth spiritual strength. There was even the sound of crashing waves. Chinyu's complexion was dignified. He constantly formed law formulas with his hands. The temperature within the pill furnace began to rise at an astonishing speed. Beneath the pressure of an absolutely high temperature, because the 3 Eternal Night Demon mushrooms contained the same source of blood essence, they began to fuse together at a slow speed. The pill furnace in front of Zhao Jiutian had turned crimson because of the high temperature within. Surging heat flowed out, causing his face to flush red. He lifted a hand and grasped a pitch-black lotus leaf with runes that resembled the face of a demon. Zhao Jiutian exerted strength in his palm and directly shattered it. This lotus leaf emitted the shrill howls of evil spirits. As the powder was swallowed up by the pill furnace, the already crimson pill furnace became even redder like magma. Zhao Jiutian's eyes revealed a trace of hesitation. He clenched his teeth and pressed his hand against the crimson pill furnace. Zilala, with the sound of flesh and blood, Zhao Jiutian's complexion instantly paled. Because of the pain, his body constantly shivered. Sweat drenched his long robe and dripped onto the ground from the corner of his robe. The flesh and blood on Zhao Jiutian's palm rapidly melted away, revealing pale white bones. As for the blood and flesh that melted away, it was instantly absorbed by the pill furnace. Child and mother Yin pill, open for me. Bang, the pill furnace opened. 2 pills, one large and one small, slowly flew out. Their surfaces were dyed red with blood and the image of a demon face appeared. Zhao Jiutian flicked his sleeves and received the 2 pills. His pale face lit up with excitement. Medium grade, it's actually medium grade. As he thought, this blood-feeding method could forcefully increase the grade of a pill. However, this wasn't the end. Although a medium-grade child and mother Yin pill was rare, it was still a bit lacking if he wanted to take first place. Zhao Jiutian carefully placed the pills into the extinguished pill furnace. Then, he turned his hand and took out a block of ice. This was a real block of ice. After it appeared, it emitted a terrifyingly low temperature. A layer of white frost rapidly formed on Zhao Zhoutian's eyebrows. But what was most shocking was that within this terrifying block of ice, there was actually a mass of fire sealed away. Although it was in a sealed state, it still gently pulsed as it calmly burned. Zhao Zhoutian's complexion was incomparably dignified. He lifted a hand and touched the block of ice. With a light cracking sound, tiny cracks appeared on the surface of the block of ice. He didn't dare to delay at all. He lifted his hand and threw the block of ice into the pill furnace. Then, with his uninjured hand, he rapidly formed hand seals. When he laid down a sealing spell on the surface of the pill furnace, there was a deep humming sound and the entire pill furnace began to gently tremble. Zhao Zhoutian had a nervous expression. After several breaths of time, the humming sound calmed down and his heartstrings relaxed. A look of wild joy appeared on his face. Success! With the extreme cold fire he exchanged for with points to temper it, the quality of the child and mother Enyang pill could rise another level. A high-grade child and mother Enyang pill was something that not even a grandmaster-level alchemist could accomplish. If he wasn't the champion of this competition, then who else could it be? White Feng Feng, the Great Desolate Lake's young master. What a great reputation. But in the end, she was just a little girl. From the start, Zhao Zhoutian hadn't placed her in his heart. Subconsciously, Qin Yu's figure flashed in his mind. Zhao Zhoutian paused for a moment, a mocking smile on his face. So what if he had the help of the 9th level furnace? Chapter 330. The Great Desolate Lake's young master that Zhao Zhoutian looked down upon had also reached the time to form the pill. The last bit of medicinal efficacy condensed into a pill was thrown into the pill furnace. It was like a giant net that completely wrapped around the fused medicinal efficacy, solidifying it. Pill form. With a loud shout, White Feng Feng lifted a hand and pointed a finger. With a loud bang, the pill furnace exploded into countless pieces. At this moment, a green bead the size of a cat's eye on her wrist suddenly shot out a bright green light that covered the pill furnace fragments. Like ice in the void, all of the pill furnace fragments were frozen in place. At the same time, a thumb-sized, pure white, jade-like pill also appeared between the shards. White Feng Feng wiped the sweat from her forehead and let out a long breath. This was her first time attempting this and she was lucky enough to succeed. But no matter what the reason was, success was success. It seemed that she could still fight for the championship of this competition. She flipped her hand and took out a jade bottle from her storage ring. After opening it, as if there was an invisible attraction, the powder within the jade bottle flew out and evenly sprinkled onto each pill furnace fragment. Then, the powder began to burn on its own. Like flickering oil lamps, the powder surrounded the pill. Big brother Baoyu, you have to work harder. If someone else takes first place, I'm afraid it won't look good on your face. As White Feng Feng was speaking proudly, fellow student Qin Baoyu had smoothly finished refining the demon puppet pill. Compared to Zhao Zhoutian and White Feng Feng's astonishing performance, the demon puppet pill could be called ordinary. It was just an ordinary opening of the furnace and the pill. The demon puppet pill was the size of a pigeon egg. Black and red wove together, forming extremely complex textures. Although Qin Yu's attainments in array formations weren't high, this pill still contained a great deal of his blood essence. He could faintly feel that these black and red textures were some sort of summoning array formation. Cough cough, of course, he immediately suppressed this thought. How could the textures on a pill possibly be an array formation? Qin Yu placed the demon puppet pill into the jade bottle and swallowed it. He closed his eyes and then opened them again. Don't worry, it's not dark yet. You will soon know just what my trump card is. The pill furnace was silent, as if it were saying, "You had best guarantee that you won't disappoint me." Night fell. By this time, most of the participating cultivators had finished refining. Of course, some had failed, and some had succeeded. The cultivators who failed, no matter how unwilling they were, could only sigh and leave. As for the successful ones, most of them stayed in the stone houses and used various methods to refine pills. That's right, the land of divinity and demons did indeed have pill refining techniques. For instance, the methods that Zhao and Bai used. Of course, not everyone could be as heroic as the two of them and pay such a high price to forcefully raise the grade of the pill. Shua, in the darkness, Qinyu opened his eyes, a sharp light surging within them. The losses he suffered from refining the demon puppet pill had been completely restored. The mouth of the furnace opened and closed. The clanging sound was ear-piercing in the darkness. It was clear that Pill Furnace brother was impatient from waiting. Qinyu faintly smiled. With a thought, the small blue lamp atop the great Dao base in his Dantian Sea vanished from sight. He raised his hand and slowly spread his fingers. Then, that deep blue color, like flowing seawater, enveloped a radius of 1 foot. That's right, the range it covered had shrunk once more. But Qinyu knew that this wasn't because its abilities had declined, but because it was hiding its strength. Perhaps because it was in the land of divinity and demons, it did indeed have some fears and needed to carefully conceal its own aura. Although Qinyu had seen the little blue lamp appear countless times, he was still amazed by its magnificence. Just a single glance at it was enough to make one feel warm and comfortable from the depths of their hearts, making them unable to help but be enchanted by it. But at this time, the pill furnace was far more excited than Qinyu. After seeing the little blue lamp, it fell silent for a short time and then began to gently tremble. Its appearance was that of someone who couldn't suppress their emotions at all. After a long time, the pill furnace calmed down. Then, strange syllables echoed in Qinyu's mind. Although he couldn't understand them, he was able to magically understand their meaning. 9 provinces, these two simple words rumbled endlessly in Qinyu's mind. It was like just this name alone possessed some invisible power. Qinyu's complexion was dignified. He felt that he had underestimated this pill furnace. Just its name alone was able to cause such an astonishing phenomenon, it was hard to imagine. Qinyu took a deep breath and said, "My name is Qinyu." The pill furnace didn't respond, but through the contract, Qinyu could feel its fluctuations. It was clear that it had remembered this name. Without saying anything else, they simply introduced each other's names. But Qinyu could clearly feel that there was more harmony between him and the pill furnace called 9 Province. He opened the jade bottle and poured out the demon puppet pill, bathing it in the light of the little blue lamp. A moment later, he could see the surface of the demon puppet pill darken and the increasingly dark color of black blood as well as the increasingly complex textures. Qinyu relaxed a little. He was originally worried that he wouldn't be able to borrow the strength of the little blue lamp to advance the demon puppet pill he refined with his own blood. But now he could relax. 9 Province suddenly trembled. An invisible aura spread out, flooding the entire stone room. It was like a thick sponge had been stuffed into a spell, completely isolating it from the outside world and making it impossible for anyone to spy on it. Qinyu smiled. He wasn't surprised that 9 Province had so easily recognized him. After all, this was the little blue lamp, a unique and precious treasure in the world. Taking out the pill, Qinyu swallowed it and closed his eyes to refine it. There were still 2 days until the competition ended. He naturally couldn't waste this time. A journey of 1,000 miles began with a single step, and one's cultivation had to be accumulated step by step. There was no room for slacking off. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. The competition was nearing its end. The South Shine Nation officials had loosened their restrictions on the major television stations and online platforms. Countless cameras had already locked onto the competition field, as well as the Jade Mountain Peak that was over 100 feet high. Currently, this mountain peak was covered with countless words. If one looked carefully, they would discover that these were the ranking results of the fourth stage. Hello everyone, I am Wang Ling, the exterior host of the Xiangnan television station. Today, I am honored to have obtained the qualifications to participate in the final ranking of the competition. Alright, I won't speak any more nonsense. I ask everyone to follow our cameras and focus on the ranking Jade Peak of the competition. As the image turned and the camera aimed, it was clear that it had extremely high resolution. Even though it was far away, it was still able to clearly record everything. First, what everyone should see is the most dazzling name, the one that sparkles with 7 colors. That's right, as you all think, he is the temporary first place of this competition. Wu Yuan, this seems to be a place name. To dare use this name, he is truly a proud son of heaven. Before today, fellow Daoist Wu Yuan's performance in the competition didn't have too many highlights, but it is clear that he was hiding his true strength. In this competition, he successfully refined an upper 5th grade fire path pill. It is extremely helpful to fire attribute cultivators' cultivation, so his first place ranking is well deserved. Wang Ling wore a wireless receiver in his ear. The signal lights suddenly flashed and he revealed a listening expression. Then, his eyes brightened. Dear friends, long before the finals began, you should have already learned of the list of outstanding proud sons of heaven cultivators. For instance, Cleansing Temple's cruel Zhao Jiutian and the Great Desolate Lake's beautiful White Feng Feng. You should all be curious as to why their rankings haven't appeared on the Jade Peak. After keeping everyone in suspense for a moment, Wang Ling said in a low voice, I just obtained news that fellow Daoist Zhao and White Fengfeng's pills are temporarily difficult to appraise because of their grade, medicinal efficacy, and other problems. In order to ensure fairness, we will immediately conduct a public verification to determine the final ranking. On the live broadcast screen, a simple but not shabby platform was rapidly built beneath the Jade Peak. Over a dozen official alchemy grandmasters appeared in front of everyone for the first time, causing countless cultivators to cry out in alarm. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are seeing right now are the most famous and powerful alchemy grandmasters of my South Shine Nation. They are the final judges of this competition. Now, Wang Ling is incomparably curious. Just what pill did fellow Daoist Zhao and White Feng Feng refine that even these grandmasters can't judge? On the live broadcast screen, the voice of an official from the South Shine Nation soon sounded out. Fellow participating Daoists, we will first verify the pill of fellow Daoist White Feng Feng from the Great Desolate Lake. He clapped his hands. Someone carried a jade bottle with both hands and quickly stepped onto the high platform, handing it over to the dozen grandmasters. After a simple judgment and confirming that there were no problems with the pill, the grandmasters all nodded, praise in their eyes. This expression caused the hearts of the countless cultivators watching the live broadcast to shake. They all revealed looks of anticipation. If this pill could cause the grandmasters to react like this, then the quality of this pill must be extraordinary. The official continued to say, after being verified by the grandmasters, there are no problems with the pill. Next, we will use a trial method to determine the medicinal efficacy of the pill. He paused for a moment and then continued to say, let me tell everyone in advance that what fellow Daoist White Feng Feng refined is an upper 5th grade sky-soaring pill. Countless live broadcast cameras focused on the Great Desolate Lakes group, giving them a long close-up. White Feng Feng had a calm expression. Her fists were tightly clenched beneath her sleeves as she barely managed to control her surging emotions. An upper 5th grade sky-soaring pill. Even her father and mother didn't think that this person could reach this step. Humph, she really is a genius. You dregs, just tremble in front of this miss. If others were to know that the cold and arrogant white Fong was actually having such thoughts, they feared they would spit out a mouthful of blood dozens of meters away. Chapter 331. The fragrance of tea filled the air. Yunilon revealed a look of praise. Miss White is truly worthy of being the young master of the Great Desolate Lake. At such a young age, she was actually able to refine an upper 5th grade sky-soaring pill. The White clan truly has a worthy successor. Ming Siyuan's lips curved up in a smile. He never thought that this last Fingfing's performance would be so amazing. An upper 5th grade sky-soaring pill. Amongst the younger generation, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that she could show disdain for all others. He inadvertently swept his eyes over Yuan Tiangang and said, "Exalted Yun is too kind." The young master only managed to do so today because of luck. Moreover, she borrowed external strength to promote the pill, not her own strength. Yuan Tiangang faintly smiled. For Miss White to have such a performance at such a young age, I am also surprised. Revered Ming should be proud of you. The juniors of Cleansing Temple aren't bad either. I won't hide it from Revered Ming, but I am quite confident in the 9 heavens. Yuan Tiangang pointed out. Ming Siyuan frowned inwardly. Even after learning the rank of the sky-soaring pill, Yuan Tiangang could still maintain such confidence. Could that Zhao Jiutian be able to refine an even higher pill? If it were anyone else, Ming Siyuan wouldn't be worried. But Cleansing Temple, even if the relationship between the two sides was tense, he couldn't help but acknowledge that Cleansing Temple did have the background and strength to contend with the Great Desolate Lake. Ming Siyuan didn't speak further. He revealed a cautious look, as well as a bit of disappointment. This was because he knew that only White Fong and Zhao Jiutian's pills would participate in the final appraisal. As for that formidable existence Ning Qin, he wasn't included. He sighed inwardly. Perhaps he had guessed wrong from the start. Fellow Daoist Baoyu had already left and hadn't participated in the competition. Thinking about the bet between White Fong and Zhao Jiutian, Ming Siyuan's face darkened. Yuan Tiangang remained calm. A high-grade child and mother Yinyang pill was a peak existence amongst 5th-grade pills. So what if it was a sky-soaring pill? In this bet, the Great Desolate Lake would undoubtedly lose. The two Blue Sea Realm super powerhouses clashed in the void. Although there wasn't any substantial strength, the invisible oppressive aura caused the air to freeze. Yunilon smiled, a look of interest on his face. He didn't seem to notice the confrontation between the two. Whether it was the Great Desolate Lake or Cleansing Temple, they were both titans of the South Shine Nation. The officials were naturally happy to see them fight each other. The Lord Exalted's eyes fell on the distant Jade Peak. He locked onto an unremarkable ranking in the corner, in Ning Qin, number 9527, 376th place. He was actually ranked around 300, this ranking was far beyond his expectations. Yunilon couldn't understand how someone with such a mediocre performance could obtain the recognition of that pill furnace. The Flying Ascension pill was a type of explosive pill that could forcibly help a cultivator obtain the power to come into contact with the rules of the world for a short period of time. This was somewhat similar to the divine blood pill that Qin Yu refined before. It could barely be seen as a reduced version of the divine blood pill. In order to ensure fairness, the people who tested the pills weren't cultivators, but rather selected monster beasts that had completely lost their rationality after being stimulated by drugs. Presently, a completely jet-black cage had appeared on the platform. The steel bars that were thick like an arm were inscribed with countless talisman markings, and a wild boar that was over 3 m long was confined within the cage. 2 sharp teeth protruded from its lips, and its crimson-red little eyes surged with madness and ruthlessness. Suddenly, the runes on the cage dimmed and the wild boar immediately obtained its freedom. It angrily howled and smashed its massive body against the cage. Bang, bang, there was a dull explosion like the roar of thunder, causing the ground to faintly tremble. 3 cultivators stood around the cage, each one holding a silver metal column. As the wild boar smashed into the cage, the metal columns constantly erupted with light, rapidly condensing into a series of numbers in the air. 3,673 horses. 3,744 horses. 3,651 horses. 3,703 horses. The runes on the cage lit up and the wild boar was imprisoned once more. An official walked in front of the cage. Without using much strength, he easily pried open the wild boar's mouth and tossed the flying ascension pill in. The imprisoned wild boar's eyes suddenly widened. Tiny blood vessels began to pop out from its small and round eyes. A moment later, the runes extinguished and the imprisoning strength vanished. The wild boar seemed to go crazy and began to crazily smash into the cage. With a loud bang, the cage that was fixed to the ground actually began to tremble. Countless runes rapidly surged on the steel bars. Even so, they still couldn't offset its strength. With light cracking sounds, cracks began to appear on the ground like a spiderweb. The metal columns shined with light once more. 12,436 horses. 13,421 horses. 11,987 horses. 12,744 horses. Countless cultivators widened their eyes in shock. After swallowing the flying ascension pill, this wild boar monster beast's strength had risen by nearly 4 times. On the high platform, the dozen or so alchemy grandmasters all revealed looks of shock and praise. They whispered to each other, and without any dispute, they came to a conclusion. On the Jade Peak, the originally colorful words Wu Yuan suddenly dimmed, and its position dropped to the second row from Overlook the Mountains. Replacing him was the Great Desolate Lake's White Fong Fong, number 3216. There was a loud gasp. Countless cultivators revealed looks of envy, but no one expressed any dissatisfaction. Even that bitter fellow Daoist from Wuyuan couldn't help but admit that the rank of this flying ascension pill was indeed above his fire path pill. The runes on the cage lit up once more. But the wild boar that had its combat strength sharply increased wasn't willing to be imprisoned. It crazily howled and struggled, but the array formation wasn't able to suppress it for some time. The official that had fed the flying ascension pill arrived in front of the cage, his face expressionless. He slapped the wild boar's head with his palm. This cruel and violent monster beast didn't even have a chance to cough before it died, blood gushing out of its head. This scene caused many cultivators to subconsciously shrink back, endless awe in their eyes. This common-looking and callous uncle had at least the combat strength of a peak divine soul realm cultivator. Indeed, the officials were the greatest sects and families. They had the most powerhouses serving them, and they could casually frighten others. Next, we will proceed to the second person. Cleansing Temple's Xiao Jutian's pill has been appraised. What fellow Daoist Zhao refined is the upper 5th grade child and mother Yinyang pill. As the official announced this, the entire martial field was thrown into an uproar. The child and mother Yinyang pill had a child pill and a mother pill as the main pill. Amongst 5th grade pills, it could be called the most difficult. This was because this was the same as refining 2 upper 5th grade pills at the same time. Moreover, the effects of the child and mother Yinyang pill, countless cultivators widened their eyes as they stared at the high platform. This time, what was brought up were 2 cages. They were exactly the same as before, but what was imprisoned inside were 2 powerful apes. The process was the same as the flying ascension pill. First, they released the cages and tested the combat strength of the 2 apes. 3,703 horses. 3,644 horses. 3,732 horses. 3,687 horses. It seemed that the officials had carefully chosen these two apes. The combat strength of these two apes was similar to that of the wild boar monster beast from before. What followed was the beginning of a horrifying scene. It was still the cold-looking official who had killed the wild boar. He fed the child and mother Enyang pills to the two apes one by one. The moment the restrictions were lifted, everyone could clearly hear the agonized howls of the ape that had swallowed the child and mother pill. A faint layer of white frost first appeared, covering the ape's entire body. Then, it rapidly thickened. The white frost fused together, turning into a layer of ice. Because the ape fiercely struggled, the ice constantly shattered and fell. But as time passed, its movements became increasingly slow and it was finally sealed within. The layer of ice became increasingly thick, but it was incomparably clear. One could clearly see the pain in the eyes of the frozen ape. Unfortunately, it couldn't make a single sound. Everyone could clearly see that the ape's body was slowly withering away, as if there were invisible mouths stabbing into its body and sucking it dry. Then, its strong body gradually withered away. Finally, all that was left over was a giant skeleton. At this time, the ape still hadn't died. Through its paper-thin skin, one could clearly see its wriggling organs. From start to finish, everything was quiet. But this silence added an incomparably horrifying hue to the scene in front of them. Every cultivator that saw this felt a cold chill surge out from their hearts. Their heartbeats seemed to stop and their blood nearly froze. The child and mother Enyang pill used the child as a guide to seize the blood vitality, magic power, and even the soul. It fused all of this strength, from yin to yang, into the body of the life form that swallowed the mother pill. Thus, a completely opposite scene appeared in the other cage. Raging flames burned and jumped like a scorching sun, causing the temperature in the air to rise crazily. But such terrifying flames didn't cause any damage to the ape in the cage at all. Instead, its aura began to rise at an astonishing speed. Roar, with a cruel roar, the imprisoned ape suddenly regained its ability to move. The runes on the surface of the cage began to wildly shine. Then, they surpassed the limits of what they could withstand and began to disintegrate. Bang! The ape smashed into the cage. Steel bars as thick as an arm protruded out. With a creaking sound that made one's teeth ache, the ground that had just been restored to its original state was instantly shattered. Dazzling light erupted from the metal columns, rapidly condensing into numbers. 17,329 horses. 18,733 horses. 19,414 horses. 17,532 horses. 18,073 horses. The entire cage had been thoroughly twisted. One could hear the metal columns groaning in pain. Bang! The metal cage shattered. The broken steel bars carried with them a terrifying strength as they shot out in all directions. The three cultivators holding on to the metal columns paled. Although they had late nascent soul cultivations, in front of these broken steel bars, they were as weak as paper. Humph! The callous uncle teleported out. He lifted a hand and pressed down. Space twisted and everything fell silent. The ape that rushed out of the cage, the sharp steel bars that shot out in all directions, the crushed stones on the ground, everything fell silent. The callous uncle was expressionless. He pushed aside the debris in front of him and arrived in front of the ape. Ignoring the tumbling flames, he pointed a finger between the ape's eyebrows. Puffed strength broke out of the ape's brain, rolling up a massive amount of red and white matter. The ape's bloodshot eyes were filled with madness. Then, like a falling tide, it faded away, turning dark. Walala, crushed stones and steel bars fell to the ground. The ape fell backwards, its body slamming into the ground. Because of this sudden change, the entire arena fell into a deathly silence. Yunilon had a look of praise on his face. This child and mother Enyang pill has likely reached the peak of high grade and even has the shadow of a top grade pill. This is why it has such amazing medicinal efficacy. Cleansing Temple is truly filled with heroic talents. Yuan Tiangang laughed. Revered Cloud is too serious. This junior Jotian still needs to be tempered, but he does have excellent talent in alchemy. After I return, I will propose to the temple master that Jotian be my cleansing temple's young temple master and open the inheritance stone for him. Yunilon nodded. With such talent, he should indeed be rewarded. The title of young temple master is well deserved. Chapter 332. Ming Siyuan's complexion paled and he coldly snorted. What kind of status did the young master have? She was involved in the Great Desolate Lake's inheritance. It was absolutely impossible for her to enter Cleansing Temple. But this was a bet that White Feng Feng and Zhao Zhoutian had made in front of everyone's eyes. If they were to go back on their word, they feared they would draw the ridicule of the world. Moreover, Cleansing Temple wouldn't easily give up such a good opportunity. How could they resolve this matter? Revered Ming felt a headache coming on. He couldn't help but feel a bit of resentment towards fellow Daoist Baoyu, whom he had never met before. If it weren't for this person, he would never have allowed the young lady to make a bet with Zhao Zhoutian. Even if she went back on her word, she would have had a reason to do so. It would have been better than the current situation. Yunilon faintly smiled. Revered Ming, there is no need to worry. The Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple are both influential influences within my South Shine Nation. Perhaps Miss White's trip this time will be a turning point for your two sides to cooperate. From now on, everyone will live in harmony and promote each other's development. Wouldn't that be a wonderful story? Yuan Tiangang secretly scolded a lot of nonsense, and the smile on his face became more and more intense. He had a sincere expression of, "Old Yun, you are right, and I give you 32 likes." Ming Siyuan's complexion became even more unsightly. The three of them were all Blue Sea Realm super powerhouses and their eyesight far surpassed that of ordinary cultivators. When the large ape broke free from its cage, they already knew what the result would be. On the platform, the dozen or so alchemy grandmasters were debating among themselves. In the end, they passed a vote and made a decision. On the Jade Peak, White Fingfing's name disappeared without warning and then appeared in the second row. The one who replaced her was Cleansing Temple's Zhao Zhoutian, number 5428. Ha 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 ha. Miss Bai, why don't you follow me to Cleansing Temple as a guest today? When the dust settled, the pale-faced Zhao Zhoutian could no longer restrain the excitement in his heart. He threw his head back and laughed arrogantly. His eyes swept across the surroundings, filled with disdain and arrogance. Looking around the entire audience, most of the young elites of the South Shine Nation were gathered here. He, Zhao Zhoutian, had climbed to the top in a single move and looked down on all the other geniuses. He naturally had the qualifications to be arrogant. At this moment, he was the center of the world. Countless cameras aimed their high-definition lenses at Zhao Zhoutian, broadcasting his current demeanor and bearing throughout the entire South Shine Nation. Countless young female cultivators were watching from the various screens. Their hearts were pounding as they looked at Zhao Zhoutian's handsome and carefree face, and their hearts were filled with restlessness. Impossible. My family's young miss has an upper 5th grade flying pill, how could she lose? Shady business. There's definitely a shady deal. We request for another appraisal. The Great Desolate Lake's cultivators roared out one after another, their faces filled with shock and anger. White Feng Feng shouted out, "Shut up. Her eyebrows furrowed and her young face was icy cold. Her dignified aura was like a boulder, making it hard for others to breathe. A defeat is a defeat. My family hasn't fallen to a point where we can't accept defeat. As for the results of this competition, my great desolate lake has no objections. His words made the faces of the alchemists on the high platform brighten up a lot. Today, nearly all of the Southshine Nation's powerful broadcasting stations and internet platforms had started a live broadcast of the competition. They absolutely would not allow anyone to slander their professionalism and integrity. Black Bebe had a heavy expression. "Cousin," White Fong Fong lightly said, "Cousin, I know what to do." Black Bebe opened his mouth and finally sighed. He was well aware that White Fing Fing's current actions were the most correct. But if she admitted defeat, then she would have to abide by the bet and enter Cleansing Temple for half a year. This was something the Great Desolate Lake absolutely could not accept. Things were getting troublesome. Xiao Jiutian laughed. "Miss White is truly honest and straightforward. I admire you endlessly." White Fing Fing's eyes were cold. "In 10 days, I will go to Cleansing Temple. Just wait for me." Xiao Jiutian cupped his hands together. "Then I will respectfully await your arrival." Shua Ming Siyuan appeared, his expression solemn. "Young master, before I leave, the master and madam asked me to bring you back. There is an important matter they need to discuss with you." He turned and lightly said, "As for the bet with Cleansing Temple, it will have to wait for Miss to return before fulfilling it." Xiao Jiutian's complexion changed. He could naturally see that this was a delaying tactic. But facing Ming Siyuan, no matter how unwilling he was, he didn't dare to say anything. However, Cleansing Temple also had a Blue Sea Realm master guarding it. Yuan Tiangang had a calm expression. "Revered Ming, since this is a bet between two juniors, let them discuss it amongst themselves. With our statuses, why should we interfere?" His words contained a cold intent. Ming Siyuan remained expressionless. Since the Great Desolate Lake's young master has spoken, he naturally won't go back on his word. He is only delaying it for a period of time, so there is no need for revered Yuan to worry about it. Yuan Tiangong's lips curled up. "Revered Ming, there is no need for you to say such words to this brother. You and I have cultivated for so long and have seen many things before. Today, this brother will only ask if Miss White is willing to fulfill the bet. If not, then this brother will immediately bring Xiao Jiutian away and order him not to mention this matter again in the future. How about it?" Ming Siyuan's complexion paled. What a good way to advance by retreating. If he tried to stop them, then he would be regarded as the Great Desolate Lake going back on their word and reneging on the bet. If this were any other time, what did it matter if they reneged on their word? At worst they would just fight. In any case, it wasn't the first or second day that the Great Desolate Lake found Cleansing Temple displeasing to the eye. But today, behind the cameras, there were many pairs of excited eyes. Ming Siyuan was well aware that if he didn't handle this well, then tomorrow the entire Southshine Nation would be flooded with negative news about the Great Desolate Lake. Yuan Tiangang added another blow. If the one who lost today was Xiao Jiutian, then I wouldn't have said a single word and would have allowed Miss White to deal with him as she pleased. Unfortunately, people are different in the end. White Fong Fong suddenly said, "Uncle Ming, I'll have to trouble you to tell father and mother that I will be going to Cleansing Temple to cultivate for half a year. If there really is something important, then you can come and see me. Father, mother, you must come. Once I go to Cleansing Temple, I will become a piece of meat on the chopping block. If you don't hurry up, your daughter will be miserable. Big brother Baoyu, where are you? Why haven't you appeared to help me at this time? Could it be that you don't like Fong Fong anymore? Cough cough, speaking of which, when did you start to like her? I don't even know." The battle between the Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple had attracted everyone's attention. Even the newly minted champion classmate Zhao Jiutian was given a certain amount of cold treatment. So, even though he had already walked to the front of the stage, no one was willing to look at him. Fellow Daoist, I would like to apply for a re-examination of the pill I refined. Helplessly, Qin Yu found a police cultivator who was maintaining order and explained his intentions. That's right, in order to show that the competition was fair, participants were allowed to apply for a re-examination if they thought the disparity in results was too great. However, in the past competitions, there were very few cultivators that applied for a re-examination. The officials that judged the rankings were all skilled alchemists. In addition to the strict appraisal procedures, the chances of an accident occurring were extremely low. The police cultivator in front of him didn't seem to have heard him clearly. He reluctantly looked away and swept his eyes over Qin Yu. He impatiently said, "What did you say?" Qin Yu was helpless. He could only repeat his words. And at this time, the police cultivator seemed to recognize Qin Yu. His complexion changed and his attitude immediately warmed. He looked around and didn't see any live broadcast, so he let out a long breath of relief. Before, that unlucky official had been reduced to the point where everyone wanted to beat him up just because he had a poor attitude towards this boy. His reputation had been ruined and his life was over. He didn't want to follow in that person's footsteps. Fellow Daoist Ning Qin, do you need me to re-examine the pill you refined? Qin Yu didn't care about the change in attitude. His heart was in turmoil right now, so he nodded and didn't say anything. The police cultivator said, "Please wait a moment. I will immediately make a report." Looking at the police cultivator hurriedly leave, Qin Yu wanted to say, "Can't you just make a phone call? Why do you look like you're running away?" Looking at the increasingly tense atmosphere between the Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple, Qin Yu bitterly smiled. He really didn't want to be involved in this matter and steal their limelight. But, he couldn't wait any longer. The police cultivator left and didn't return. But, it was clear that Ning Qin's request had already been passed on. Many eyes on the high platform looked over. Although the South Shine Nation officials had given them the right to re-examine a pill, not everyone could casually exercise this right. Otherwise, if everyone said the same thing, wouldn't they be exhausted to death? However, Qin Yu did have the qualifications to do so. Disregarding everything else, just the troubles he had caused, no one dared to underestimate him. Drawing back 10,000 steps, exalted Yunilan seemed to be interested in him. Just this point alone was enough to change their minds. Cough. Seniors revered Ming, revered Yuan, please wait a moment. We have received an application and need to re-examine a pill. The official in charge of the appraisal respectfully said. He was cursing Qin Yu to death inwardly. To have him interrupt them at this time was absolutely asking for trouble. Good. No. The first response was from Ming Siyuan, and the second was naturally from Yuan Tiangang. It was normal for the two of them to have diametrically opposite attitudes. One wanted to find an excuse to overlook this matter, and the other wanted to take advantage of the situation and force the Great Desolate Lake to agree. The managing cultivator immediately fell into a daze. His forehead dripped with a cold sweat. He didn't know how to respond. Ming Siyuan's eyes were icy cold. Revered Yuan, in the end, the matters between you and me are both private matters. But right now, we are in the midst of the South Shine Nation's grand competition. Isn't it a bit too much to delay the time of fellow Taoists because of personal matters? At this moment, the audience in front of the various screens were crazily shouting out in their hearts. We aren't afraid of being delayed, just continue. Re-examining a pill, who the hell would want to watch? Yuan Tiangang furrowed his eyebrows. Ming Siyuan's words were reasonable. If he insisted on stopping him, he wouldn't be able to do so. But if he were to miss out on such a good opportunity, then he feared that White Fong Fong might enter Cleansing Temple. His thoughts raced and his lips curved up in a smile. Revered Ming's words aren't wrong. But I've never liked waiting. Just wait for me, it will be over soon. Who is it that wants to re-examine the pill? A low and deep voice, stimulated by his powerful cultivation, instantly spread through the entire audience. Qin Yu's lips twitched. He braced himself and stepped forwards. Greetings, revered Yuan. It is this junior. In front of the Blue Sea realm, no amount of respect was excessive, unless you wanted to seek death for no reason. Yuan Tiangang frowned for a moment before composing himself. Ning Qin, I know who you are. I only have a few words for you. If you cancel the re-examination request, then you can join Cleansing Temple and I will give you a good position. He changed the topic and swept his cold eyes around. Of course, if there are others who also want to apply for a re-examination, then don't blame me for being impolite. Ming Siyuan cursed inwardly at how cunning he was. But before he could speak, Yuan Tiangang sealed up the last loophole. Revered Ming, it isn't that I want to bully you, but the affairs of the world are difficult and one must be cautious. Of course, I believe that Revered Ming wouldn't send a cultivator from the Great Desolate Lake to apply for a re-examination to deliberately embarrass me, right? Chapter 333. Yuan Tiangang had a calm expression, a faint smile on his lips. Ming Siyuan and the people from the Great Desolate Lake all had a weakness, and that was that they paid too much attention to face. If the one who lost today was Xiao Jiutian, then he wouldn't have agreed to release him no matter what. As for those words he said just now, idiot, since he had already won, it wasn't like he would lose any face if he said a few words. Moreover, he could also stimulate his opponent, so why not? Old Yuan held his hands behind his back. He felt as if everything was under his control. As long as he could capture White Fong Fong, then he could find a breakthrough in the deadlock between Cleansing Temple and the Great Desolate Lake. Of course, this breakthrough would give Cleansing Temple the absolute upper hand. There was even a chance that they could push the Great Desolate Lake into a hopeless situation. In Yuan Tiangang's mind, he had thought of at least several hundred ways to deal with the Great Desolate Lake. But before he could think of a better method, a helpless voice sounded out in his ears. I thank Revered Yuan for his kindness, but this junior's strength is mediocre. I fear that I will ruin Cleansing Temple's reputation, so there is no need. Ming Siyuan was startled. Then, he laughed, good. I appreciate a junior cultivator like you who has a backbone and ideals. You and I are cultivators, this is how we should be. Only when we rely on ourselves to walk down the road can we be truly solid. I believe that in the future, you will surely have extraordinary achievements. His face was full of praise, as if he were looking at a peerless proud son of heaven that only appeared once in 100 years. His warm eyes were filled with encouragement. Brat, you've done well. Continue like this, your future will be bright. Yuan Tiangang's complexion darkened. This junior Ning Qin actually dared to defy his will, this was simply unimaginable. There was also Ming Siyuan. He had just mocked Qin Yu. The cultivators of the Great Desolate Lake cherished their face. Now that he heard these words, it was like he had been slapped in the face and his heart turned even colder. Ning Qin, do you know what you are doing, what you are missing out on, and what you will obtain? Ming Siyuan lightly said, Revered Yuan, with your cultivation, it is a bit beneath you to openly threaten a junior. Yuan Tiangang had no expression. He disobeyed my will, which is the same as disrespecting me. Even if I punish him, it is only right and proper. This was the advantage of being shameless. He could say anything he wanted without shame. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. Offending a Blue Sea Realm's super powerhouse wasn't a wise decision, but he couldn't give up all of his efforts just because he was threatened. Only the strong could control their own destiny. Qin Yu's desire to become stronger became incomparably urgent. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "Revered Yuan, I have my reasons, please forgive me." Yuan Tiangang was so angry that he smiled. "Good, very good." An invisible pressure swept out in all directions like a tide. Yunilan's figure suddenly appeared on the field. He was like a boulder falling into the sea, suppressing everything. "Revered Yuan, Ning Qin is a participating cultivator. Since he has doubts about his ranking, he has the right to request a re-examination." These words expressed his dissatisfaction. Yuan Tiangang frowned. He couldn't figure out just what Yunilan was thinking. If the Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple fought each other, that would be in the best interest of the South Shine Nation. Yet, he actually wanted to intervene. There was a hint of vigilance in his heart. Before he figured out the reason, Yuan Tiangang decided to retreat temporarily and hid his breath. I was too impulsive. I hope Supreme Cloud can forgive me for my impropriety. Venerated Ming, I hope that you and Miss Bai won't run away from reality. We'll talk about the bet later. Humph. Ming Siyuan coldly snorted and returned to the side of the people from the Great Desolate Lake. White Feng Feng stubbornly maintained her momentum, but there was a pitiful look in her eyes. This look left Ming Siyuan unable to vent his anger. With a cold expression, he began to think about how to break out of his current predicament without losing face. At this time, the pondering Lord Venerated Ming didn't know that the matter he was worried about would soon be resolved without any effort. Yunilan smiled and cupped his hands together. "I thank Revered Yuan for giving me this little bit of face." He turned and lightly ordered, "Men, bring the pill refined by Ning Qin." All of the pills in the competition, besides those used by White Feng Feng and Zhao Jiutian who needed to test their pills, were sealed away. They would only be disposed of after the competition came to an end. Soon, the pill numbered 9527 was brought over. Along with it was the cultivator responsible for appraising it. He was a middle-aged man in blue clothes. His complexion was a bit pale, but he remained calm. Although the audience in front of their screens were a bit dissatisfied that the liveliness between the Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple had been interrupted, since it involved Ning Qin, their interest was quickly piqued. They also wanted to know why Ning Qin would risk offending a Blue Sea Realm super powerhouse and insist on re-examining his pill. Just why? Could it be that he believed he had a chance of becoming the champion? Besides this, they couldn't think of anything else that could cause him to disregard the price like this. Well, they had heard that the pill furnace in Ning Qin's hands was quite unusual, but alchemy couldn't rely on a pill furnace alone. Just looking at his previous results, it was already a stroke of dog shit luck that allowed him to enter the finals. Moreover, who didn't know that Ning Qin was refining a useless pill like the demon puppet pill? Disregarding the difficulty, even if he barely managed to refine it, how high could the grade be? Re-examining, there was no meaning to it at all. Yunilan lightly said, "You were the one who appraised the pill refined by Ning Qin." The blue-clothed middle-aged man hurriedly bowed. Reporting to Exalted Yun, "It was me." "Tell me your reason." "Yes." The blue-clothed middle-aged man straightened himself and coldly glared at Qin Yu. "Fellow Daoist Ning Qin, the demon puppet pill you refined was refined with your own blood and the eternal night demon mushroom." He opened the jade box and poured the pill into his hand. "Everyone, please take a look. This pill can barely be considered round on the outside and it is dim without any light at all. Moreover, the medicinal fragrance is faint. At most it is an ordinary pill. Of course, in order to ensure that the appraisal is fair, we will scrape off a small amount of powder from each pill and analyze the energy contained within. The final result of this demon puppet pill is that it is low 4th grade. Thus, I have ranked it 376th. May I ask if fellow Daoist Ning Qin is confused about something that requires a re-examination? On the appraisal platform, an alchemy grandmaster stood up. He nodded and said, "This demon puppet pill was re-examined by me and the results were the same. 376th place is very appropriate." Yunilon swept his eyes over Qin Yu. Seeing that he was still as calm as before, his thoughts stirred. He said, "Then today, I asked the various grandmasters to conduct another appraisal. If it were anyone else, the grandmasters wouldn't have bothered with them. Just what sort of characters were they? Every minute they spent was worth several thousand spirit stones." In particular, when Qin Yu proposed a re-examination, he had questioned the appraisal committee of the competition. This was a great loss of face for them. But now, the grandmasters had no objections. They took out the demon puppet pill, all of them stirring their spirits and bringing out 120% of their skills. They had to carefully appraise it. Appraise it well. Appraise it so well that no one could say anything. "Brat, you dare to question our professionalism? Let me tell you, you're done for." Beneath the live broadcast cameras, the 10 grandmasters performed a visual feast called professionalism. The entire appraisal process flowed like clouds in water, but it was also extremely rigorous. Even a layman would be convinced after seeing the entire process. The process wasn't long. After a brief summary, the grandmasters put away their tools and elected someone to read the results. "Exalted Yun, we have completed the re-examination." Beneath the monocle, a cold light flashed. The grandmaster's voice was calm and steady. "Demon puppet pill, ordinary standard pill, ordinary medicinal efficacy, low 4th grade. However, after careful monitoring, we found that the impurities in this demon puppet pill have exceeded the limit, so its strength will definitely be affected. Although it is still considered a 4th grade pill, its rank of 376 is a bit inappropriate. We have unanimously decided that it should be lowered to 408. After applying for a re-examination of the pill, not only were they unable to obtain a better ranking, but they had instead been knocked down. This result was beyond everyone's expectations. The martial stage immediately fell silent. The audience watching from the screens subconsciously dropped their jaws, their faces dull. Yunilon frowned. He had personally ordered a re-examination. Even if these grandmasters were dissatisfied, they still wouldn't dare to tamper with the results. His eyes fell on Qin Yu and revealed a cold intent. Although he was curious about the choice of the pill furnace, he wouldn't allow a junior to act recklessly in front of him. There had to be an explanation for this matter. Yuan Tiangang lightly said, "I heard that Ning Qin took many opportunities to show off on the internet and attract countless attention. Youngsters these days are truly incredible. In order to attract attention, they are willing to do anything." This was clearly to label Qin Yu as someone who courted death. Ming Xiyuan frowned inwardly. But in the end, Qin Yu had temporarily helped the Great Desolate Lake out of trouble. He thought for a moment and slowly said, "Perhaps that isn't the case." Yuan Tiangang looked over. "Does revered Ming mean that there is something wrong with this pill's appraisal results? Forgive me for my poor eyes, but I really can't see what is so special about this demon puppet pill. How about I make a bet with revered Ming? We will bet on the quality of this demon puppet pill and revered Ming will decide the stakes. How about it?" Ming Xiyuan's lips curved up, his words filled with ridicule. Ming Xiyuan's complexion sank. "Humph. I have no intention of questioning the results. Revered Yuan is too sensitive." He pretended as if he hadn't heard anything about the bet. Qin Yu suddenly spoke up, but his words surpassed everyone's expectations. He cupped his hands together and bowed. "Revered Yuan, this junior would like to make a bet with you." If the quality of the demon puppet pill is acceptable, then I ask that you forgive my previous offense. Otherwise, I am willing to accept any punishment that revered Yuan has to bear. Yuan Tiangang was silent for a moment. Then, he shook his head and chuckled. How interesting. A mere nascent soul junior actually has the courage to make a bet with me. Haha, good, I agree. If you lose, then cut off your hands and never refine pills again in the future. This punishment was extremely heavy, but in front of a Blue Sea Realm junior, a nascent soul junior was as fragile as an ant. To dare to make a bet was in itself a great offense, so it was natural for him to be punished. No one would express any sympathy. Qin Yu's pupils shrank. He cupped his hands together and bowed. Thank you, revered Yuan. He stood up. Revered Yun, I wonder if this junior can personally prove the effect of this demon puppet pill. Yunilan's eyes flashed. All right. On the stage, the dozen or so grandmasters all had gloomy complexions. Their hearts were filled with anger. Their gazes seemed to tear thousands of bloody holes all over Qin Yu's body. This junior was too rampant. With the combined strength of over a dozen people, the results had already been verified, and yet he still dared to act like this. This was no different from slapping them in the face. This was simply intolerable. Arrogant junior, you don't know your depths. Humph, if you try to be brave for a moment, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Give it to him, give it to him. I want to see just what evidence he can bring out. At most he will just test the pill and summon a puppet. What tricks can he play? Chapter 334. Qin Yu received the demon puppet pill from the grandmasters with icy cold eyes. This pill was refined by him, so he knew there was no problem with it. Looking down, it was indeed as the grandmasters had said. It was ordinary and the medicinal efficacy ordinary. But the truth was that this seemingly ordinary demon puppet pill was actually not ordinary at all. 2 days passed. In the darkness of night, Qin Yu took out the little blue lamp and bathed the demon puppet pill in its light, raising its rank. The first night passed normally. On the surface of the demon puppet pill, there were runes that looked like summoning arrays. As time passed, they became increasingly clear. The entire pill was incomparably warm, sparkling with a treasure light. One could tell at a glance that it was extraordinary. But what happened was that after midnight of the second night, the demon puppet pill that was bathed in the deep blue light suddenly darkened. Countless tiny cracks even appeared on its surface. Qin Yu was shocked. He had never encountered such a situation before. In just several breaths of time, the superb quality demon puppet pill had turned into such a pitiful state. He even suspected that as long as he touched it, it would shatter into powder. Tomorrow was the deadline to hand over the pill. Even if he tried to refine it now, there wasn't enough time. Without the little blue lamp to purify it, the demon puppet pill he refined simply had no chance of winning. As Qin Yu frowned, 9th Province sent out a second thought fluctuation after he signed the contract with Qin Yu. Demon puppet pill, mutation, neat strength, eternal night demon mushroom, the meaning wasn't difficult to understand. So, Qin Yu immediately began the second refinement. As expected, the mixture of blood and eternal night demon mushroom that 9th Province refined was directly absorbed by the demon puppet pill after approaching. The cracks on its surface greatly reduced. Then, there was a second, a third, a fourth. Qin Yu exchanged for 7 eternal night demon mushrooms. 3 of them were refined into the demon puppet pill, and the last 4 were completely absorbed by the demon puppet pill after fusing with his blood. And at this time, the cracks on the demon puppet pill completely disappeared. But the treasure light and the runes on its surface also faded away. On the surface, this demon puppet pill seemed extremely ordinary. But only Qin Yu could feel the astonishing strength contained within it. It could be said that the quality of this demon puppet pill even surpassed Qin Yu's own expectations. He was a bit worried that if he handed over this pill, it would attract unnecessary trouble. After all, with his cultivation, it was hard to explain just how he had refined such a super pill. With a nervous heart, he handed over the demon puppet pill. He had already prepared himself to welcome the attention of everyone. He had even thought of an excuse to face all sorts of questions. But reality played a joke on him. As soon as the 376th place ranking appeared on the Jade Peak, he nearly choked on his own saliva. Even if there were as many proud elites in the land of divinity and demons as dogs, it was impossible for his demon puppet pill to be pushed to such a miserable position. Obviously, there was a huge deviation in the appraisal results, which led to the current situation. As Qin Yu held the demon puppet pill, he could feel the surging strength within. A trace of enlightenment appeared in his mind. This should be because of a mutation. Thus, only he, the one who refined the demon puppet pill, could feel its strength. In the eyes of others, it was just a low-level, low-grade 4th-grade pill that barely took shape. Qin Yu's eyes swept over the stage. At the arrogant and sneering grandmasters, a trace of pity appeared in his eyes. They had been completely unjustly targeted. With such a large-scale live broadcast, the masters' reputations would be smashed to smithereens after today. He lifted a hand and bit down on his fingertip. Then, he placed a finger on the demon puppet pill and threw it into the air. Countless eyes and cameras quickly turned to aim at the tumbling demon puppet pill in the air. Then, a rich black and red fog erupted without warning. In the blink of an eye, it covered the surrounding 1,000 feet of space. A rich smell of blood and a monstrous infernal energy tumbled about. The black and red fog rapidly condensed, forming an incomparably massive array formation in the blink of an eye. Rumble, rumble, between the heavens and earth, endless spiritual strength boiled and roared. It crazily rushed into the array formation. Their speed was fast and there were so many of them that they were like rivers returning to the sea. The array formation in the air seemed to be activated at this time. It began to shine brightly, erupting with a terrifying aura that rumbled into the nothingness. Space trembled. Tiny cracks appeared. Then, without warning, the shattered space was broken from within. What pierced through was a pitch-black fist, its surface covered with snake-like scales. The fist turned into a palm. It grasped the edges of the shattered space and ruthlessly tore outwards. Then, the cracked space completely disintegrated. A black figure walked out from the shattered space. Its appearance was similar to a human's, but it had no facial features. Its entire body was covered in pitch-black scales. From afar, it looked like a shadow. Between the heavens and earth, the temperature crazily fell. Black icicles began to appear, spinning as they sprinkled towards the earth. As they touched the ground, a massive layer of black ice condensed. In the blink of an eye, everything within sight was frozen solid. A cultivator dazedly reached out a hand and caught a piece of icicle that fell from the sky. In the next moment, an incomparably horrified expression appeared on his face. But at this time, he no longer had the chance to regret his actions. The black ice instantly froze him within. Ah! What the hell is this? Hurry and run. Don't touch that icicle. With panic-stricken screams, the surrounding cultivators rapidly retreated. Luckily, the icicles only covered 1,000 feet, otherwise there would have been massive casualties. The unlucky cultivator that was sealed in ice had already been rescued by an official master. The official shattered the layer of ice covering his body, but this peak divine soul powerhouse revealed a shocked expression. As he looked at Qin Yu, there was a deep sense of dread in his eyes. With his cultivation, when he broke through the ice, he actually felt a trace of fear that came from the depths of his soul. The black figure that was summoned broke through space and appeared in front of Qin Yu. It stepped onto the black ice and knelt down on one knee. There weren't any words, but anyone could clearly feel his strength, and his submission. The entire martial field was deathly silent. In the distance, even the tens of millions of cultivators watching through screens were completely stunned. This was the demon puppet pill. Qin Yu's heart shook. Although he knew that after the demon puppet pill mutated, it possessed an extremely formidable strength, the results still surpassed his expectations. The demon puppet pill should have summoned a puppet formed from medicinal efficacy and heaven and earth spiritual strength. It could only exist for a short period of time before dissipating. But at this time, he could clearly feel the aura of life that the black figure in front of him emitted. It was alive. The demon puppet pill had actually summoned a powerful, living life form. What kind of joke was this? Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed his tumbling thoughts. He barely managed to maintain his composure and turned around. Revered Cloud, this is the demon puppet pill that Junior refined. Inwardly, he bitterly smiled again and again. At this time, even an idiot could tell that his limelight had been too great, so great that it couldn't be any greater. With things having come this far, he could only hope that the demon puppet pill wouldn't bring him too much trouble. But it was clear that this was only a delusion. The appearance of the heaven-defying demon puppet pill didn't just bring trouble, but also a great life or death danger. And in this danger, Qin Yu had obtained an unexpected harvest. Of course, this was a story for another time. At this time, as long as one wasn't blind, they would know that the dozen-some grandmasters had all been slapped in the face. This wasn't a light slap, but a flurry of blows. Their faces were black and swollen, so much so that it was impossible to see their original color. After a moment of shock, everyone looked at the grandmasters with pity in their eyes. Oh. Was this a lower fourth-grade pill? Too many impurities in the pill. And 376 wasn't suitable, so it should be reduced to 408. If there were a hole in the ground, these grandmasters really wanted to crawl in and never show their heads again. How shameful. Yuan Tiangong's complexion paled. Even he didn't expect this result. He had been hunting geese all year round, but today he had been pecked in the eye by a little house sparrow. It didn't matter if he lost the bet. At worst he would just attack when there was no one around. What he was thinking about now was the bet between Zhao Jiutian and White Feng Feng. Perhaps he had picked up a stone and smashed it on his own foot. Even with Yuan Tiangong's shrewdness, he still couldn't help but curse in his heart. White Fingfing's eyes widened, her face flushed red. She couldn't suppress her excitement as she whispered, turning around in a hopeless situation. Turning around in a hopeless situation. Zhao Jiutian, you never thought that someone as beautiful as me would have such luck. Little brother Ning Qin, you are too amazing, I love you to death. Black Bebe was overjoyed, but a strange expression crossed his face. His cousin was a smart person, but had she really been scared to death just now? How could she not have thought of this? His eyes fell onto Qin Yu's dark and ordinary face. As he thought about the disdain he had shown towards Qin Yu before, beads of sweat began to form on his forehead. Senior, if it really is you, then please be magnanimous and don't bother with an ignorant junior like me. Ming Siyuan's eyes revealed a deep look that he immediately restrained. He pretended to laugh in a carefree manner. Good. Good. Little friend Ning Qin is truly an outstanding young man. When I was young, I was far from being able to compare with you. His eyes fell onto Yuan Tiangang. Revered Yuan, didn't you just say that the bet between us isn't over? I also think that it's best to clarify things face to face. Blood tumbled in Yuan Tiangong's chest and he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. What a good Ming Siyuan. I always thought you were a modest gentleman, but I never thought that you would be able to play this trick so smoothly. But what he said before was too firm. Even if he wanted to find an excuse, there was no way to do so. In the end, there was still a difference between being thick-skinned and being shameless. Yunilon's heart shook. A look of praise appeared in his eyes. This was truly worthy of being a treasure furnace that was passed down from an unknown land. Its effects were truly extraordinary. An ordinary demon puppet pill could actually be refined to such an astonishing effect. As a Blue Sea Realm's super powerhouse, he could clearly feel just how formidable the summoned shadow was. But he didn't discover that this shadow wasn't a simple puppet, but a mystical and special life form. That's right, revered Cloud had already thought of the most perfect explanation for why Qin Yu was able to refine such an astonishing demon puppet pill. In Yunilon's opinion, perhaps Qin Yu was hiding some extraordinary ability on his body. But the reason he was able to refine the demon puppet pill was absolutely because of the treasure furnace. There was no doubt about this. Since the treasure furnace could display such an astonishing strength, then Qin Yu, who was recognized by it, was worth it for the South Shine Nation to try and win him over. Chapter 335. On the appraisal platform, the Grand Masters all had dispirited expressions, as if they had lost their souls. Their spiritual worlds had suffered a devastating blow. Over a dozen people had joined forces to appraise it, and yet they hadn't been able to discover how powerful this demon puppet pill was. If this was because of carelessness or arrogance, then this result might have been acceptable. But the truth was that they had taken out their full strength to appraise it. This was something the Grand Masters couldn't accept, and they even began to doubt their own abilities. As Yunilon's voice fell, there was an awkward silence. Then, the Grand Master who spoke looked up with difficulty. Behind his monocle, the light in his eyes dimmed. Reporting to Exalted One, we take back our previous words. This demon puppet pill is the true first-place winner of this competition. His eyes turned to Qin Yu. His lips moved and he bitterly said, "Fellow Daoist Ning Qin, it was us old men who had eyes but failed to see. If we have offended you before, I ask that you forgive us." The truth spoke louder than all else. Seeing the Grand Masters lower their proud heads with their own eyes, the countless cultivators cheered in satisfaction. But amidst this joy, there was also a bit of sympathy. Thus, in the silence, a bit of complexity appeared on their faces. Qin Yu's thoughts raced. He cupped his hands together and said, "Grand Masters speak too seriously. I just happen to know some special refining methods. Moreover, the strength of this demon puppet pill has also surpassed my expectations." His sincere expression caused the Grand Master's expressions to soften. After all, this was some sort of long-lost refining method. It was understandable that they couldn't appraise it. But no matter what, this was still Qin Yu giving them a way out of this embarrassing situation. The Grand Masters were grateful but also incomparably embarrassed. They had originally vowed that they would teach Qin Yu just how high the heavens were and how deep the earth was. But who knew that in the blink of an eye, they would need Qin Yu to help them out. In the eyes of the Grand Masters, Qin Yu was magnanimous and gave them a way out of this embarrassing situation. But in truth, Qin Yu was only using this opportunity to explain why the demon puppet pill was so formidable. As these words fell into Yunilon's ears, he became even more certain that the source of the demon puppet pill's strength lay in the treasure furnace. Zhao Zhuotian's eyes widened, an expression of disbelief and unwillingness on his face. He stared helplessly on as his name was forcefully pushed down to second place. At the highest point of the Jade Peak, a rainbow-colored light sparkled. New words appeared, in Qin Yu, number 9527, first place. Concocting the child mother Yin-Yang pill had already left Zhao Zhuotian with significant injuries. Now that his mind was in turmoil, his vision darkened, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. The South Shine Nation's youth alchemy competition was filled with twists and turns. Finally, with Zhao Jiutian spitting out a mouthful of blood, the curtain fell on the South Shine Nation's youth alchemy competition. Through the live broadcast, the rainbow-colored name that appeared atop the Jade Peak spread to every corner of the South Shine Nation. Ning Qin's name became a hot topic on the internet once more. The number of followers on his Weibo account soared. Countless female cultivators cried and left messages expressing their love for him. As long as he was willing, they could consummate their marriage tonight and give him a child next year. Ha 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 ha. That bastard Zhao Jiutian, he was actually angered to the point of vomiting blood. He really is narrow-minded. I heard that his anger rushed to his heart and several blood vessels in his head exploded. Hee hee, how pitiful. White Feng Feng placed her hands on her hips, a happy expression on her face. It was hard to see any sympathy from her. Black Bebe rolled his eyes. Cousin, the fact that Zhao Jiutian is injured like this is the best excuse. Cleansing Temple definitely won't allow him to leave with us. White Feng Feng was stunned. Are you saying that bastard Zhao Jiutian was pretending? Black Bebe curled his lips. That might not be true. But with this sort of injury, there's a high chance it will be exaggerated. Perhaps he will be bedridden tomorrow, struggling on his deathbed. White Feng Feng stomped her feet in anger. She cursed out loud at everyone from Cleansing Temple, calling them shameless bastards. Ming Siyuan coughed. He lightly said, "That's enough. You were lucky this time. If it weren't for little friend Ning Qin's sudden appearance, I want to see just how you would have ended things." Black Bebe stifled a laugh. Revered Ming was also prepared to be shameless just now, but hearing these words, he must have been embarrassed. Humph. Ming Siyuan coughed. Black Bebe quickly lowered his head, as if he didn't know anything. White Feng Feng clenched her teeth for a long time. If Cleansing Temple dares to act shamelessly, then I won't let them off easy. This matter isn't over yet. You guys were so aggressive before, but now that you've been knocked to the ground, you still want to let this pass. Dream on. Ming Siyuan warned Black Bebe. Then, his expression returned to normal. He thought for a moment and said, "Young master, how do you feel about this little friend Ning Qin?" White Feng Feng had a confused expression. "I'm very grateful to him. He helped me avoid being humiliated by Cleansing Temple." Black Bebe nearly fell to the ground. "Cousin, could your reaction be any slower than this?" Revered Ming wasn't asking about this sort of thing. Cough cough, cousin, don't you think that Mr. Ning Qin is very familiar? White Feng Feng had a dazed expression. "I don't know him, well, that's not right. His figure is quite good. He's well-proportioned and tall." She shyly smiled as she spoke. Black Bebe was left speechless. How could she suddenly turn into a love-struck fool? "Cousin, do you think that Mr. Ning Qin might be Senior Baoyu?" White Feng Feng sneered. "Are you blind? My family's big brother Baoyu is so handsome and elegant. He doesn't resemble Ning Qin at all, so how could they be the same person?" Black Bebe spat out a mouthful of blood. "Cousin, oh cousin, don't you know that there are things in this world called appearance-changing masks? Don't you know that there are some cultivation methods in this world that can allow one to change their appearance? Senior Baoyu is most likely the reincarnation of a peerless calamity immortal realm powerhouse. It would be easy for him to grasp these little tricks." Ming Siyuan's expression was calm. It was just that his eyebrows were a bit stiff. He felt that it was necessary for him to return to the Great Desolate Lake headquarters and solemnly remind the Bai family's couple that they had to work harder in educating their child. If White Feng Feng weren't the Great Desolate Lake's young master, then with her current performance, she would absolutely be a character that would die in 2 episodes. Black Bebe laboriously explained. Then, he took out an appearance-changing mask and changed into a living person on the spot. White Fingfing's eyes brightened. Right, right. I was also curious. Ning Qin isn't that good looking, so how could he possibly have such an amazing figure? Now that I think about it, he really is my big brother Baoyu's model. That's right, he is my big brother Baoyu, my big brother Baoyu. White Fengfeng turned and rushed out. Ming Siyuan's face darkened and he stopped her. Young master, I have already told you that you absolutely cannot reveal anything about fellow Daoist Baoyu. If you recklessly rush over like this, I fear you will draw trouble to yourself. White Fengfeng curled her lips. But I miss him. Young master, this is only our guess so we can't confirm it for the time being. But, he has helped the Great Desolate Lake, so it is reasonable for us to thank him afterwards. Please wait patiently. Looking at White Fengfeng reluctantly nodding her head, Ming Siyuan's thoughts stirred. Although the young master was young and didn't understand the dangers of the world, it was clear from her current performance that she had a favorable impression of fellow Daoist Baoyu. If she could really move fellow Daoist Baoyu and the two of them walk together, that would be a great thing for the Great Desolate Lake. Of course, the premise of all of this was that his guess was correct. Fellow Daoist Baoyu was indeed the reincarnation of a deva. Otherwise, while he was thankful, he didn't need to think too much about the matters above. She was the dignified young master of the Great Desolate Lake, the future ruler of the Great Desolate Lake. She was a woman who played an important role in the South Shine Nation. Not just anyone had the qualifications to covet her. As revered Ming's thoughts raced and White Fengfeng pouted in displeasure, Qin Baoyu was being summoned by High Exalted Unilan. As one of the South Shine Nation's exalted elders, Unilan's status was transcendent. Even the nation king had to bow to him. He was an absolute figure that stood above the clouds. Such a one-on-one meeting naturally attracted countless envious gazes. Everyone knew that this meant that Ning Qin had already caught Supreme Cloud's eye. His future was bound to be bright. Ning Qin greets revered Cloud. Qin Yu bowed, his tone respectful. Unilan smiled and waved his hand. There is no need to be so polite. Sit. Qin Yu expressed his thanks and sat down. His back was straight and his eyes drooped. He perfectly displayed the pride of a young cultivator and the awe that came from the depths of his heart. This performance was in line with his current status. Revered Cloud felt that he had already seen through Qin Yu. His smile became even more relaxed. He asked Qin Yu several questions about his master and what he experienced in his youth. After some idle chatter, he finally entered the main topic. Ning Qin, you should be aware that my South Shine Nation is holding a competition and all pill furnaces are provided by the officials. After the competition ends, they must be returned. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. This junior understands. With a flick of his sleeves, the cracked pill furnace appeared in front of him. I ask Supreme Cloud to take back this pill furnace. Unilan's eyes fell on Qin Yu. He didn't sense any reluctance. Instead, he felt a bit of appreciation towards Qin Yu. He lifted a hand and grasped the pill furnace. But at this time, the pill furnace suddenly erupted with an extremely powerful aura. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a galloping bull that hurtled straight towards Unilan. Frowning, Unilan's grasp turned into a slap. The void shook and like a pool of water, the pill furnace was sealed within. No matter how it erupted, it couldn't break free. This also counteracted all of the strength it erupted with. The room fell silent. Qin Yu stood up and bowed. Supreme Cloud, Unilan interrupted him. I know that this matter has nothing to do with you. It is this pill furnace that doesn't want to leave. His expression was calm, but there was a trace of excitement in his heart. He thought for a moment and said, whatever. Since this furnace is fated with you, I'll let you keep it for the time being. He scattered the imprisoning strength and forced the pill furnace back to Qin Yu's side. Ninth Province seemed to know how strong Ming Siyuan was. After expressing his stance, he didn't attack again. Qin Yu hesitated. This, although he didn't know what sort of treasure Ninth Province was, there was no doubt that it was precious and powerful. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a treasure furnace. To an alchemist, such a treasure was unimaginably precious. Qin Yu naturally thought of taking it for himself. But he was well aware that it was impossible for the South Shine Nation officials to agree to give him Ninth Province. Thus, when Yunilan asked for it just now, Qin Yu didn't hesitate to take it out. Yunilan waved his hand. "It's fine. You will still need to wait here for several more days." Without waiting for Qin Yu to speak, Yunilan gave an explanation. "I heard that in this great competition, there will be a great number of outstanding youths. The royal family has already sent out a special envoy who will arrive soon. At that time, the special envoy will appear and personally bestow the rewards." For some unknown reason, Qin Yu's heart throbbed. Although it vanished in the blink of an eye, it still left him puzzled. After hesitating for a moment, he cupped his hands together and said, "Revered Cloud, this junior still has important matters to attend to. Can I leave first and have the inn send a cultivator to accept the special envoy's rewards on my behalf?" Yunilan shook his head. "The reason the special envoy came here today was to see a young talent like you. As for other trivial matters, let's put them aside for now. It won't take too long." His attitude was still warm, but Qin Yu's heart chilled. He respectfully bowed and sat down for a moment before standing up and bidding his farewells. Chapter 336. Qin Yu had a calm expression. After he returned to the residence that the South Shine Nation officials had arranged for him, his complexion darkened. As the champion of the competition, his treatment was naturally different from before. This residence was spacious and bright, and the decorations were luxurious and exquisite. But now that he was here, all Qin Yu could feel was a cold chill rising from the depths of his heart. Yunilan refusing to let him leave wasn't normal at all. The greatest possibility was because of the heaven-defying demon puppet pill. Thinking of this, Qin Yu looked down at the shadow beneath his feet. His eyes shined. This shadow didn't seem any different to outsiders, but only Qin Yu knew that the strange life form summoned by the super demon puppet pill was currently in his shadow. Turning back to yesterday, after the competition results were announced, Zhao Jiutian vomited blood and fainted. Ming Siyuan taunted and ridiculed him, and Yuan Tiangang gloomily led his people away. The competition came to an end. But, not many people cared about the shadow that followed behind Qin Yu. After all, no matter how powerful a summoned puppet was, it would naturally dissipate once the time was up. When everyone left and Qin Yu was the only one left, it took a step forward without warning and directly fused into the shadow beneath Qin Yu's feet. Then, it brought Qin Yu a supernatural ability similar to instant movement, Shadow Step. Qin Yu had already tested it out. As long as he touched a shadow, he could use Shadow Step and instantly appear in any shadow within 10 miles. Moreover, the most heaven-defying aspect of Shadow Step was that it could ignore all shackles. As long as it was a shadow, it could be used. Although the maximum distance he could move was only 10 miles, Shadow Step was still an extremely heaven-defying supernatural ability that could preserve one's life. This caused Qin Yu to feel a little more at ease. If he really encountered danger, then with the Shadow Step supernatural ability in hand, he might have a chance of escaping. As for leaving now, although Qin Yu hadn't entered Divine Soul, his soul force was extremely formidable. He could faintly feel that after he left Yunilan's dwelling, his aura wasn't quite right. It was only when he entered his dwelling that it vanished. But there was definitely still someone secretly monitoring him. If he used Shadow Step, he would likely face the teleporting Yunilon in the next moment. Qin Yu took a deep breath and barely suppressed his tumbling thoughts. He comforted himself that perhaps he was overthinking things and the South Shine Nation officials didn't have any ill intentions. Qin Yu took out 9th Province and had it activate its defenses. Then, he sat down cross-legged and swallowed several pills. The next day, someone knocked on the door. Qin Yu expected that someone would come knocking on his door after he won first place. But, he never imagined that it would be Cleansing Temple that came first. Yuan Tiangang smiled. He couldn't help but acknowledge that these Blue Sea Realm great figures were indeed shrewd and deep. At the very least, what Qin Yu felt right now was a comfortable spring breeze. Ning Qin, it was my true self that misunderstood you. I hope you don't mind. With Yuan Tiangong's status, for him to say these words could be said to be filled with sincerity. Qin Yu cupped his hands together in return. Revered Yuan's words are too heavy. This junior doesn't dare to accept them. Yuan Tiangang smiled. I know that you always have some resentment in your heart. This ancient jade is a small object that I obtained in my early years. I will give it to you. Don't refuse, this ancient jade can't be considered a precious treasure. Just think of it as a congratulatory gift from me for winning first place in the competition. Just accept it. Qin Yu praised him inwardly. Disregarding his character, it was already commendable that this Blue Sea Realm super powerhouse of Cleansing Temple was willing to give up face to come here. But he absolutely couldn't accept this ancient jade. To put it bluntly, who knew whether or not this ancient jade had been tampered with? With a Blue Sea Realm cultivation, there were at least 10,000 ways to use this ancient jade to place Qin Yu in a death trap. Revered Yuan, this junior swears that I have no intentions of disrespecting you. I ask that you take back your gift. Yuan Tiangang cursed inwardly at this slippery little bastard. This little bastard was quite vigilant. If he spoke any further, he feared that Qin Yu would become even more suspicious of him. He smiled and said, Ning Qin, the reason I came here today is because I have a matter that I hope you can agree to. Seeing Qin Yu's vigilance, he no longer beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Qin Yu thought to himself, Revered Yuan, please speak. Yuan Tiangang maintained his composure. I hope that you can sell the treasure furnace remnant spirit you obtained in this competition to my Cleansing Temple. He had a sincere expression. Although the treasure furnace remnant spirit is precious, it isn't easy to use. Moreover, if there is a single mistake, it will cause great damage to the pill furnace that absorbs it. How about you trade it to my Cleansing Temple? I guarantee that I will give you an extremely generous price. As expected, he had come for the treasure furnace remnant spirit. The fleeting flame furnace wanted it and Cleansing Temple also wanted it. It seemed that this thing wasn't ordinary. However, as he thought about how his situation today was all because of this treasure furnace remnant spirit, he bitterly smiled. He didn't know whether or not this trip was worth it. Qin Yu was about to decline when there was a knock on the door once more. His thoughts stirred. He cupped his hands together and said, Revered Yuan, please wait a moment. Oh. He stood up and opened the door. As he expected, it was the people from the Great Desolate Lake. Qin Yu's thoughts raced and he soon made a decision. Although this was a bit risky, there was a chance that he could break the deadlock. No matter how bad the result was, it was better than being helpless and at the mercy of others. Ming Xiyuan smiled and said, Little friend Ning Qin, I have come today to thank you. With just a few words, Qin Yu had closed the distance between them. He couldn't help but have a favorable impression of him. Indeed, those that could reach the Blue Sea Realm weren't ordinary characters. Junior greets Revered Ming. Qin Yu smiled. You came just in time. Revered Yuan is also here. Ming Xiyuan's eyebrows arched up, a cold intent in his eyes. Revered Yuan is also here, what a coincidence. Qin Yu stepped to the side. Ming Siyuan smiled and nodded, walking in. Behind him, White Feng Feng stared straight at Qin Yu, her face flushed red. If it weren't for revered Ming's instructions, she would have already cried out in joy. It was Big Brother Bao Yu, it was Big Brother Bao Yu. There was no mistaking this smell. Looking at this girl's expression, Qin Yu knew that she had recognized him. Luckily, he had already experienced her sensitive nose before, so he wasn't too surprised. He only gave her a meaningful look to tell her not to speak carelessly. White Feng Feng nodded imperceptibly. She quickly walked behind revered Ming and gently pulled on his wide sleeves. Ming Siyuan maintained his composure, but the smile on his face became increasingly bright. Little friend Ning Qin, I was lucky to see you 2 days ago, otherwise my family's young master would have lost. What a pity, although you helped the young master win the bet, there was actually someone who didn't care about face and pretended to be dead instead of fulfilling his promise. I'm left speechless. Qin Yu secretly praised Ming Siyuan for being a good person. Just as he was worrying about how to find an opportunity, Ming Siyuan suddenly spoke up. He hurriedly said, "Is it the bet with fellow Daoist Zhao Jiutian?" Ming Siyuan was startled. He didn't think that Qin Yu would dare to respond to him. Could it be that this fellow Daoist Bao Yu was also dissatisfied with Cleansing Temple? That would be for the best. Of course it's that junior. Perhaps there was some misunderstanding in the matter of plotting to kill the young master, and I have already agreed to give Cleansing Temple a chance to investigate. But this bet was signed in full view of everyone. Now that the result is out, I never thought that Cleansing Temple would want to shirk responsibility. Qin Yu earnestly nodded. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. This is indeed not the way to do things. The two of them echoed each other and arrived at the entrance. No matter how thick Yuan Tiangong's skin was, his face was still a bit gloomy. In particular, what caused his heart to sink was that even though Ning Qin knew he could hear him, he still dared to echo Ming Siyuan's words. Could it be that there was some sort of agreement between the two of them? As soon as this thought appeared, he couldn't sit still. Ignoring Ming Siyuan's mocking eyes, he said, "Little friend Ning Qin, I am willing to pay a deva soul in exchange for it. I wonder what you think." Ming Siyuan's complexion changed, revealing a look of shock. Although Qin Yu had already made his decision, he still felt his heart surge with excitement as he heard this. He almost blurted out his agreement. The so-called Deva soul was not a treasure formed by the heavens and earth. Rather, it was a transcendent calamity immortal realm existence that would have their soul shattered into millions of fragments when they died. Then, through a lucky chance, they would be condensed from soul fragments. One couldn't underestimate it, it was only a mere soul fragment. It had to be known that this was a Deva soul. Any nascent soul cultivator that obtained it could directly break into the divine soul realm after refining it. The value of this item was unimaginably high, it couldn't be purchased with spirit stones. The scene fell silent for a time. Only White Feng Feng had a clueless expression as she stared at Qin Yu. Ming Siyuan's cold voice broke the silence. "Revered Yuan, does Cleansing Temple have a Deva soul? It's best if you don't joke about this sort of thing." Yuan Tiangang had no expression. "Revered Ming, since I have spoken, I will not speak without thinking. Ning Qin, as long as you agree, I guarantee that I will deliver the Deva soul to you within 10 days. Ming Siyuan's complexion darkened. If even a specific time limit was given, could there really be such a precious treasure hidden within Cleansing Temple? Qin Yu sighed inwardly. If Yuan Tiangang could take out the Deva soul at this time, then perhaps he really would agree. After all, exchanging a treasure furnace remnant spirit that he didn't know how to use in order to rise his cultivation by an entire boundary was a great temptation to the current Qin Yu. But 10 days later, the South Shine Nation royal family envoy had already arrived. There simply wasn't enough time. Although Qin Yu felt regret in his heart, his expression didn't change at all. He lightly said, "The price that revered Yuan is willing to pay is indeed moving. But this junior really doesn't trust Cleansing Temple, so I can only decline your good intentions." At this time, even White Fong Fong, who had been staring at Qin Yu, was shocked by these words. What was this? This was a public face slap. Moreover, the one being slapped was Yuan Tiangang, the face of a Blue Sea Realm super powerhouse. Paw! Paw! White Fingfing's eyes shined. She held her hands against her chest as if she couldn't breathe. Big brother Baoyu, you are too amazing, too mighty, too domineering. I worship you so much. Yuan Tiangong's complexion paled. His eyes were as cold as a bone-chilling wind. Ning Qin, are you trying to offend me? Blue Sea's rage shocked the world. At this time, the space within the room nearly froze over. Every time Qin Yu gasped for breath, he felt as if countless knives were scraping across his windpipe, leaving behind a burning pain. But the more this was so, the calmer he became. His eyes were indifferent as he slowly said, "This junior was too blunt with his words. I ask revered Yuan to forgive me." Ming Siyuan nearly shouted out loud. What a swift and fierce stab, blunt with his words. Was there a stronger critical strike than this? Yuan Tiangang took a deep breath. All of his raging emotions were restrained like a tide. But his eyes became even colder. I don't know what promise you obtained that you would dare to be so insolent towards me, but I will soon have you understand that beneath the wrath of a Blue Sea realm, everything will be burned to ashes. In front of Qin Yu, Yuan Tiangong's eyes suddenly became deep and profound, like an endless abyss that could pull out a person's soul and swallow them up, causing them to fall into eternal darkness, never to be able to transcend. Ming Siyuan's complexion changed. Just as he was about to attack, he heard a light cough. Qin Yu's slightly confused eyes instantly restored their clarity. Chapter 337. Endless waves rose up in Ming Siyuan's heart. At this time, there was no longer any doubt in his previous guesses. It had to be known that Yuan Tiangong's soul-killing methods were something that even he had to carefully deal with. But Ning Qin, with his mere nascent soul cultivation, was able to break free in the blink of an eye and even cause a backlash, the reincarnation of a deva. He was absolutely the reincarnation of a deva. Otherwise, how could he possibly possess such a powerful soul? At this moment, revered Ming's heart burned with a fiery heat. If the reincarnation of a calamity immortal realm supreme elder could become a part of the great desolate lake, that would represent an indescribable lucky chance. In the future, the South Shine Nation and even the wider world would become their stage. Ming Siyuan's eyes fell on White Fong Fong and he revealed an earnest look of anticipation. Young master, you must work harder and capture fellow Daoist Baoyu as soon as possible. The future of our great desolate lake will depend on you. As Ming Siyuan was lost in his thoughts, Qin Yu's back was already wet with a cold sweat. Just now, for the first time, he truly felt just how terrifying a Blue Sea Realm Supreme Elder was. He felt as if his soul had been grasped by an invisible strength. Without giving him any time to resist, it would forcefully break free from his body and then be crushed to pieces. Luckily, Qin Yu had a partner soul. At the critical moment, he managed to block it and win a breath of time for the little blue lamp to respond. Then, within his Dantian sea, a brilliant light erupted. It was like a star that suddenly lit up in the dark skies. That deep blue light seemed to cross through endless space and time, shining into Qin Yu's soul space. Then, the invisible strength that descended upon his soul melted away like snow under the scorching sun. But at this moment, Qin Yu felt his vision fall into darkness. He was isolated from the outside world, as if he had fallen into the coldest place in the world. That cold intent ignored his powerful mortal body and cultivation, directly piercing through all obstacles and descending upon his soul, as if it wanted to see through him. That's right, he clearly saw it. This was because Qin Yu could clearly feel that cold and indifferent gaze, as well as the undisguised annihilation within that cold and indifferent gaze. All of this had come too suddenly and disappeared without warning. His field of vision was restored as if nothing had happened. But Qin Yu knew that it had really happened. And the reason for all of this was because the little blue lamp had erupted with light just now. To be able to give him such a terrifying feeling, like an ant facing a blue sea without the least bit of room to resist, and also targeted at the little blue lamp, this was the will of the world. Only the will of the world could accomplish this. A single gaze was enough to make him feel as if he was in a desperate situation. Qin Yu's heart was still shaking. He finally understood why the little blue lamp had fallen silent after entering the land of divinity and demons. The aura of the will of heaven and earth was much stronger than when it was in the desolate barren land. It was simply incomparable. Although the gaze of the world's will had already faded away, Qin Yu knew that a sharp saber hung above his head, ready to cut down soon. With his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to survive the attack from the long saber. Qin Yu felt the gaze of the world's will. That annihilating aura caused him to freeze in place. Because his body was stiff to begin with, no one noticed anything strange. At this moment, because his face was stiff and expressionless, in the eyes of Yuan Tiangang, it was a performance of coldness and self-confidence. It was obvious that if Ning Qin didn't have absolute confidence in himself, how could he possibly maintain his current state? Moreover, what caused Yuan Tiangong's heart to tremble the most was that he had faintly felt an aura from Ning Qin's body that made his heart race. That aura seemed to belong to this part of the world. Blue Sea Realm Supreme Elders had an incomparably sharp sensing ability. Because of this, they could magnify any danger to infinity. Yuan Tiangong's eyes revealed shock and a deep dread. At the same time, there was also a burning heat that he couldn't suppress. The strength that Qin Yu displayed at this time had aroused his interest. If he could control Qin Yu and carefully investigate his secrets, there might be some unexpected harvests. As for whether or not he could suppress Qin Yu, Yuan Tiangang didn't doubt this at all. In the end, he was a Blue Sea Realm super powerhouse. Even if Qin Yu was a bit mysterious, how could he possibly resist his strength? His eyes erupted with brilliance. Yuan Tiangang lifted his hand and grasped out. There was a loud rumbling sound in the void, as if an invisible wall had locked down every inch of his body. There was nowhere to run. This imprisoning strength was inconceivably formidable. Qin Yu was expressionless, but alarm bells were ringing in his heart. If that person didn't take action soon, he would be miserable. And this take action wasn't referring to Ming Xiyuan. With a cold snort, a figure suddenly appeared. He lifted a hand and pointed at the void. It was like a mountain that supported the heavens toppling over and falling into a great lake, immediately stirring up great waves that shattered the imprisoning strength. Qin Yu drew back again and again. His face paled and his eyes dimmed. This finger had shattered the suppressive force around him, but it hadn't done much to protect him. Thus, even though the shock waves from their collision had caused his blood to tumble and he had suffered some injuries, this was Yunilan's warning to him that he had done something to him. As he thought, to these old and experienced existences, his methods were still immature. They could see through his intentions in the blink of an eye. Qin Yu bitterly smiled inwardly. But, he didn't regret his actions at all. He respectfully bowed, "Thank you, revered Yun, for helping me." Yunilan glanced over at Yuan Tiangang. He lightly said, "Revered Yuan, Ning Qin is the champion of this competition. Don't you think your actions have gone too far?" These words were heavy. In particular, coming from Yunilan's mouth, they represented the dissatisfaction of the entire South Shine nation. And in fact, this was indeed the case. Yunilan had already received a secret letter from the capital. That person was extremely interested in Ning Qin, so he naturally couldn't allow anything to happen to him. Objectively speaking, Yuan Tiangong's actions weren't excessive. But they had already touched Yunilan's nerves. He absolutely wouldn't allow any unstable factors to appear at this critical moment and affect the subsequent arrangements. Yuan Tiangong's complexion darkened. From these words, he could feel a threat. In all his dealings with Yunilan, this was the first time this had occurred. It could be seen that this South Shine nation exalted was truly enraged. But it was also because of this that the meticulous Lord Revered Yuan couldn't help but overthink things. His first thought was that Yunilan had discovered the secret hidden on Ning Qin's body and was preparing to take it for himself. Originally, this was only a guess. But with Yunilan's appearance, Yuan Tiangong's judgment was confirmed. He took a deep breath and narrowed his eyes. Revered Yun's words, "I don't quite understand. Junior Ning Qin has been disrespectful to me, so can I not punish him? So what if he is the champion of the great competition? Can he compare to the dignity of a Blue Sea Realm's supreme elder like you?" This reaction didn't seem like Yuan Tiangong's usual smooth and slick way of dealing with matters. He simply didn't leave any room for negotiation and directly confronted Yunilan. The simple meaning was, although the South Shine Nation is called the South Shine Nation, my cleansing temple doesn't necessarily fear you. A gloomy expression appeared on Yunilan's face. He originally didn't think too much about this, but Yuan Tiangong's unexpected response left him thinking about it. Was Cleansing Temple preparing to snatch away the pill furnace that the South Shine Nation still hadn't fully understood? As soon as he thought of this, Yunilan's aura instantly rose. Cleansing Temple had good eyesight, but weren't they afraid that their teeth would fall out? A chill tumbled in his heart, but Yunilan remained calm on the surface. He slowly said, "How does Revered Yuan plan to deal with Ning Qin?" Yuan Tiangang lightly said, "I will take him away. Life or death is not a concern." Yunilan shook his head. "No." With these two simple words, the entire space fell deathly silent. Time seemed to stretch out without end. Every breath of time seemed incomparably long. Space twisted and tiny distortions appeared in the air. Everything seemed calm, but beneath this calm surface was a great volcano waiting to erupt. Once it erupted, it would be enough to completely destroy everything in front of it. Ming Siyuan grabbed the still unaware White Feng Feng and pulled her behind him. His complexion darkened as he looked at the scene in front of him, his thoughts rapidly racing. Yuan Tiangang and Yunilan were confronting each other, their focus focused on Qin Yu. When this scene fell into the eyes of Revered Ming, who thought he already knew all the secrets, he had a completely different interpretation. Yuan Tiangang and Yunilan had sensed the secret of Deva reincarnation on Qin Yu's body. This was the only way to explain why these two Blue Sea Realm Supreme Elders would tear apart all pretense of cordiality and confront each other head-on. The soul of a Deva, to any Blue Sea Realm, this was a great temptation. This was because it contained a chance to break into the Calamity Immortal Realm. For some unknown reason, the high-level cultivators of the Great Desolate Lake were well aware that the chances of obtaining the soul of a Deva were unimaginably low. Perhaps the Great Desolate Lake would have already begun to move. Returning to the main topic. With the judgment of his superiors, Ming Siyuan felt that he needed to make a decision. There was no longer any doubt that Ning Qin or Bao Yu was the reincarnation of a Deva. If he could sell them a favor today, then even if the miss and him didn't end up together in the end, the great desolate lake could still form good karma with this transcendent existence that would surely become a calamity immortal in the future. With his thoughts set, Ming Siyuan exerted strength in his hand. Before White Feng Feng could resist, she was sent flying away. He stepped forwards like a mountain, falling into the invisible confrontation between Yuan Tiangang and Yunilan. The complexions of the two Blue Sea Realm super powerhouses changed. They coldly glared at him. Ming Siyuan lightly said, "My great desolate lake has always distinguished gratitude and grudges clearly. Little friend Ning Qin has helped the young master, so he is a friend of my great desolate lake. The reason I came here today is to invite him to the great desolate lake as a guest." Disregarding whether or not this was a valid reason, at least his attitude was clear. Thus, Yuan Tiangong's pupils shrank and Yunilan's heart was filled with anger. One of them was more and more determined to obtain Qinyu, and the other was angry that Cleansing Temple and the Great Desolate Lake had actually shown hostility towards the South Shine Nation at the same time. Qinyu originally only hoped to enrage Yuan Tiangang so that he would take action and disrupt the situation, seeking a few variables. But, as the initiator of all this, he never expected that the situation would develop to this step. The air seemed to freeze over and there was no longer any sound between the heavens and earth. The auras of the three Blue Sea Realm Masters were like invisible hands that thrust into the heavens, stirring up the winds and clouds. Thus, thunder roared. Thus, strong winds raged. The horizon turned pitch black, as if eternal night had arrived. Chapter 338. A peak nascent soul had the strength of 1,000 horses. 1,000 horses were equal to a flood dragon. The strongest divine soul had the strength of 1,000 flood dragons. 1,000 flood dragons were equal to a single dragon. As for the higher boundary, the Blue Sea Realm, they could at most possess the strength of 1,000 dragons. This was an ancient. Yunilan, Ming Siyuan, and Yuan Tiangang were all far from having the strength of an ancient. But as veteran Blue Sea Realm super powerhouses, the three of them had a combat strength of around 300 dragons. From this data, one could clearly understand just what the Blue Sea Realm was. Thus, even though Yun, Ming, and Yuan's three Blue Seas hadn't truly fought, just the collision of their auras was enough to cause a world phenomenon. The cultivators participating in the competition were all of the South Shine Nation's younger generation. Most of them only had a golden core or nascent soul cultivation. Within the range of this aura, they were as fragile as ants. It was already amazing that they hadn't fainted from fright. As for the few South Shine Nation officials, even if they had peak divine soul cultivations, they could only tremble beneath the might of a blue sea, not daring to approach at all. In this wilderness, the area that had been cleared fell into a deathly silence. Besides the sound of wind and thunder, there was no other sound. Everyone fell into a deep fear. They didn't know whether or not their fates would come to an abrupt end in the next moment. At this time, a wisp of light suddenly appeared. It tore apart the eternal night in the skies and sprinkled warmth onto the earth once more. That heavy pressure that left one unable to breathe began to rapidly recede like a tide. At this moment, countless cultivators felt as if they had been reborn. They gasped for breath, their expressions filled with excitement. They looked up and stared at the figure that appeared in the skies. There was no need to remind them. Everyone knew that it was this figure that had saved them from the brink of collapse and death. Unfortunately, there seemed to be a far too formidable strength surging around this figure. Space was distorted and blurry, making it impossible for anyone to see who it was. Qinyu never realized that breathing was such a blissful matter. His eyes fell on that blurry figure with gratitude. But in the next moment, this gratitude came to an abrupt halt. Yunilan took a step back. He restrained his aura and bowed, "Greetings, old ancestor." He was an exalted of the South Shine Nation and had a lofty status. For Yunilon to bow to him like this, it was naturally only the most exalted person in the South Shine Nation. Old Ancestor. South Shine Nation's old ancestor, Yunilon had once mentioned the royal family's special envoy, and today, the South Shine Nation's old ancestor had arrived. If you said that there was no connection between the two, haha, who were you trying to fool? Qin Yu discovered that he seemed to have underestimated the attention placed on him by the South Shine Nation officials. To others, this might be the result they yearned for even in their dreams. But Qin Yu had the little blue lamp. Once he was discovered, he would die without a doubt. At this moment, in his anxious and restless mind, he suddenly remembered a lyric that he had inadvertently heard from a certain TV series. If time could be rewound, only a bastard would participate in this competition. Ming Siyuan and Yuan Tiangong's pupils shrank. They bowed at the same time. We greet Ancestor Huluan. In the South Shine Kingdom, Huluan was the surname of the country. Within the entire competition arena, countless cultivators could hear the voices of the three Blue Sea Realms super powerhouses. After a brief period of silence, the sounds of kowtowing filled the air like a tsunami. Greetings, old ancestor. The sound waves surged into the sky. Just this point alone was enough to highlight the South Shine Nation's old ancestor's unsurpassed status and dignity. Beneath the skies, a blurry figure spoke up. You may rise. His voice was gentle, like a clear spring that poured into the depths of one's heart. It shook one's spirits and caused them to feel even more awe. When they looked up once more, the South Shine Nation's old ancestor had already vanished from sight. For better or worse, the three of you are Blue Sea cultivators and yet you can't maintain your composure. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the juniors? The South Shine Nation's old ancestor smiled, as if he hadn't been angered by what happened just now. Qin Yu could clearly see that the old ancestor had taken a step in the skies and then appeared in front of him. Although it was incomparably sudden, it gave off an extremely natural feeling, as if he should have been standing here to begin with. As if sensing Qin Yu's gaze, the South Shine Nation's old ancestor turned his head. As he met those eyes that seemed to see through everything, Qin Yu's heart shrank and he quickly lowered his head. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor revealed a smile. He looked at Qin Yu several more times before looking away. It was clear he was a bit interested in Qin Yu. Yunilon bowed. Old ancestor, it was I who didn't handle the situation properly. I asked the old ancestor to punish me. Ming Siyuan and Yuan Tiangang revealed a bit of unnatural expression. They both opened their mouths to ask for forgiveness. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor smiled and waved his hand. Although I just arrived, I can roughly guess what the reason is. It should be because of this little friend. Yunilon nodded. He is Ning Qin. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor smiled. He is truly an outstanding young man. Not bad. His eyes fell onto Ming Siyuan and Yuan Tiangang. I believe that this competition was absolutely wonderful and many amazing juniors have emerged. If they aren't properly trained, then it would be too much of a pity. So, I sent a message to Exalted Yun to have him retain these juniors for a few days so that I can personally take a look at them before making a decision. After a pause, the South Shine Nation's old ancestor smiled. I have decided to restart the refinement of the Revival Good Fortune pill. I ask revered Ming and revered Yuan to pass on this message. Although his words were polite, they weren't a discussion but a one-sided announcement. From this, one could see just how strong the South Shine Nation's old ancestor was. Ming Siyuan and Yuan Tiangong's complexions changed. Revival Good Fortune pill, this was one of the South Shine Nation's greatest secrets. In the last several thousand years, it had only been opened a few times. Most of the cultivators that participated in this event were able to obtain amazing good fortune. Although this revival good fortune pill was a bit strange, up until now, nothing seemed out of place. Those cultivators that obtained good fortune, unless they perished midway, all of them obtained considerable achievements. For instance, this exalted Unilon was someone that obtained a heaven-defying lucky chance from the revival good fortune pill 1,700 years ago. Thus, he was able to become a Blue Sea Supreme Elder today. Ming Siyuan cupped his hands together. Old Ancestor Huluan, I must first report to my two masters before replying. Yuan Tiangang nodded. I also need to report to the Hall Master. Old Ancestor Huluan had already appeared. There was no need to discuss matters concerning Qin Yu any further. Moreover, it seemed that they had been wrong about this matter. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor smiled. It's fine. I will give you 2 days to consider. 3 days from now, the top 10 of the great competition will all obtain an invitation to refine the revival good fortune pill. He turned, his eyes warm. Ning Qin, I am quite optimistic about you. Don't disappoint me. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. Just as he was about to say something, a look of fear suddenly gushed out from the depths of his eyes. After a tenth of a breath, he stood up and walked over to the South Shine Nation's old ancestor's side. He bowed and said, "This junior will do his best. I will not disappoint the old ancestor." The South Shine Nation's old ancestor was startled. He immediately smiled and nodded. At this time, he only felt that this junior was quite bold. He never imagined that he would inexplicably fall into his trap. It's here. At this moment, the blood drained from Qin Yu's face. His soul shivered and screamed. The skies darkened without warning. This sort of darkness didn't seem like the world phenomenon caused by the battle between the 3 Blue Sea Supreme Elders. Rather, it was like some existence had opened its mouth and taken a bite, eating away at this complete space into nothingness. That's right, it was that kind of emptiness, a feeling of nothingness without anything at all. Just looking at it caused a chill to rise from the depths of one's heart. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor's complexion changed. He fiercely looked up, his eyes locking onto that darkness, and his complexion paled. No one knew just how angry the old ancestor was at this time. He never imagined that the annihilation tribulation he sensed would suddenly arrive. And he hadn't sensed any of this beforehand. Has the world already made up its mind to erase this old man from existence? The South Shine Nation's old ancestor's eyes surged with madness. Within his decisiveness was unwillingness and anger. If they wanted to kill him, it wouldn't be so easy. That's right, the pitch-black darkness that suddenly appeared in the skies had been taken over by the South Shine Nation's old ancestor. It could only be said that this was an incomparably beautiful misunderstanding. From the start, the old ancestor never imagined that the pitch-black darkness in the skies was coming for this junior that was respectfully bowing in front of him. Without warning, a black light shot out from that pitch-black nothingness. This action seemed to exhaust all the strength of the nothingness. Thus, when the black light arrived, the nothingness trembled and collapsed, vanishing from sight. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor shouted out loud. An incomparably terrifying aura erupted from him, like 100,000 volcanoes erupting at once. It was hard to imagine just how his thin and weak body could contain such an astonishing strength. Qin Yu tensed up. He felt as if a building was toppling over. Fear gripped his heart like a giant hand. Without a doubt, if he were to be struck by this aura, he would instantly turn into a pile of broken bones and minced meat. Life or death hung on the line. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor frowned. He erupted with his aura, wrapping around Qin Yu. This junior might still be useful, of course. If he couldn't cross today's great calamity, this junior would die an even more miserable death. It was unknown what the black light was. It passed through space without leaving behind a single trace, as if it were nothing more than a phantom. But the South Shine Nation's old ancestor's complexion became increasingly dignified. He could clearly feel the destructive strength contained within the black light. Break! With a thunderous roar, the old ancestor punched out his fist. Between the heavens and earth, there was a violent roar. The strength of this fist turned into a fierce black dragon in the blink of an eye, colliding with the black light. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor's fingers began to form law seals within his sleeves. Once the situation turned bad, even if he was discovered, he would still go all out. But in the next moment, he furrowed his eyebrows. This was because in the moment they collided, he could feel the illusory nature of the black light. Its strength was far too weak. With this thing, it might be able to injure him, but wanting to erase him from existence was impossible. Paw! The black light disintegrated, turning into countless tiny particles of powder. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor's complexion changed. This was because he discovered that the powder didn't disappear. Rather, after passing through the might of his fist, it continued to roll towards him, like black snow. It really wasn't as simple as it seemed. The old ancestor coldly sneered. In his long life, he had seen countless schemes and plots, so how could a mere trick like this be able to deceive him? But soon, the old ancestor's sneer turned to one of surprise. This was because he discovered that the target of this black snow wasn't him, but Ning Qin. Chapter 339. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor's heart shook. He thought of the possibility that he was being used, but this thought only flashed for a moment before it was erased from his mind. Today, the world's erasure was indeed weaker than he imagined, but to kill an ordinary blue sea realm was as easy as turning his hand. A mere nascent soul realm junior, an ant-like existence, didn't have the qualifications to do so. So why would the world's erasure be directed at Qin Yu? Like a beam of light, it split apart the fog that swirled in his mind. In that split second, the old ancestor thought of a possibility. His breath caught in his throat. Then, it deepened. Raging anger ignited in his chest, igniting within him. The world's erasure couldn't deal with him, but it could destroy his hopes of continuing to live and thus indirectly achieve its goal. That's right, it had to be like this. The old ancestor had already learned everything about Qin Yu from Unilon. If it weren't for that mysterious furnace choosing to recognize him as its master, how could he have condescended to come here? Indeed, this junior Ning Qin was the turning point for him to break through his shackles. And now, the world's erasure wanted to kill Ning Qin and destroy his hopes. Despicable. Shameless. Even the world was sinister and treacherous. If you have any methods, then come at me, but if you want to touch my turning point, don't even think about it. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor angrily roared out. He reached out a hand and slapped at the powder that fluttered towards him. His wide sleeves fluttered about. Every single ripple caused space to shatter and countless fine cracks to appear in it. With a furious strike, the old ancestor's cultivation erupted without any violence. As his palm fell, it was like a million mountains were collapsing. At this time, each and every one of these tiny grains of powder seemed as heavy as a mountain. The old ancestor stuffily coughed and his complexion paled. Not only was this powder incomparably heavy, but it also contained a tyrannical strength that could destroy the soul. Even with his cultivation, he was barely able to withstand it. Was there really a need to do this to kill a mere nascent soul? It seemed that the world's will had expected him to stop it. But if he was careless for even a moment and was struck by even a single grain of powder, Ning Qin would be thoroughly killed. The South Shine Nation's old ancestor couldn't help but rejoice. Luckily he had reacted quickly, otherwise it would have been too late for regret. Humph. Since the old ancestor had already discovered it, then no matter what methods you have, you can forget injuring Ning Qin in the slightest. All of the powder was forcefully destroyed by the South Shine Nation's old ancestor with his tyrannical strength, even if he had to suffer heavy injuries. Cough cough, coughing lightly, the old ancestor raised his head to look at where the black void had disappeared, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Damned heavens, you're still not good enough to fight me. The old ancestor lowered his head. His eyes became incomparably gentle, as if he were looking at the most precious treasure in the world. Ning Qin, I will leave first. 3 days from now, I will wait for you in the capital city. He turned, his voice as cold as the midwinter night wind. Yunilon, I admire Ning Qin very much. His safety cannot be compromised. These words were clearly not just directed at Yunilon. Cracks began to appear on the South Shine Nation's old ancestor's body. Then, the old ancestor began to disintegrate, turning into countless shimmering powder that vanished from sight in a breath of time. Ancestor's body. Or ancestor. Ming of this, the ancestor of Yun. After standing up straight, he said with a solemn expression, Revered Ming, revered Yuan, you already understand what the old ancestor has said. Please make your preparations as soon as possible. Ming Siyuan took a deep breath and slowly said, Revered Ming, revered Yuan, you have already understood what the old ancestor has said. Please prepare as soon as possible. Ming Siyuan took a deep breath and slowly said, I will immediately report back. At the latest, there will be a result by tomorrow. He glanced at Qin Yu, nodded, and left. Yuan Tiangang bid his farewells without expression. The old ancestor's words were clearly a warning to him that he couldn't move against Ning Qin for the time being. Moreover, what happened just now and the cultivation the old ancestor revealed just now had left endless waves in his heart. He had to immediately contact Cleansing Temple. Watching the two leave, a sharp light flashed deep in Yunilon's eyes. The revival good fortune pill was indeed suspected by all sides of the South Shine Nation, but the lucky chance and good fortune it represented couldn't be refused. The Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple would definitely agree. Of this, revered Cloud was fully confident. But at this time, he didn't feel any joy at all. He was aware of the old ancestor's condition. Everything should have been under his control and he even had time to prepare. So why would a world-killing tribulation descend today without any warning? Had something happened to the old ancestor? Yunilon's complexion darkened. After a long time, he took a deep breath and looked at Qin Yu. Ning Qin, I know you are restless in your heart, but I hope that something like today will be the last time. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. But before he could speak, he was interrupted. I don't need your promises. I only look at your actions. I hope you won't disappoint me. After sending the preoccupied Yunilon away, Qin Yu closed the door. All the pores on his body opened and massive amounts of sweat gushed out, soaking his robes. His hair stuck to his forehead and he looked incomparably distressed. His feet felt soft and he didn't even have the strength to take a step forward. Qin Yu supported himself against the door and slowly sat down. Then, he let out a long breath and bitterly smiled. Just now, he really had taken a trip to the gates of hell. If it weren't for the old ancestor, his fate would have been miserable to the extreme. In the skies above, before that pitch-black void appeared, Qin Yu had already received a warning from the little blue lamp. Before his thoughts raced, he instinctively responded and approached the old ancestor. This was because the old ancestor was the strongest person present. Only he might be able to resist the world's killing tribulation. Now that he was still alive and the old ancestor didn't even suspect anything, it could only be said that Qin Yu didn't know what the reason was. But at this time, only a ghost would be in the mood to care about karma and cause. Living was the most important thing. After a long time, Qin Yu felt his sore body gradually recover its strength. He didn't stand up. Instead, he straightened his legs and changed into a relatively comfortable position. Then, he leaned against the door, deep in thought. That black beam of light that descended just now was terrifyingly powerful, but through the little blue lamp, Chin-yu could faintly feel that it wasn't a true killing move. Rather, it was more like a probe by the world's will. That's right, it was a probe. Through this attack, it wanted to determine just how strong Chin-yu was and then formulate a true annihilation plan. Thinking of this, even though Chin-yu had a firm will, his complexion darkened and he bitterly smiled inwardly. A single probe was already so terrifying. If a true annihilation were to descend, then perhaps all that was left for Chin-yu was death. No wonder the little blue lamp had been so silent after entering the land of divinity and demons. It was because once it erupted with its true might, it would be locked onto by the world's will. Chin-yu didn't have any complaints about this. Not to mention the fact that if the little blue lamp hadn't attacked, Yuan Tiangang would have been enough to make him suffer. The reason he had his current cultivation and was able to step into the land of divinity and demons was all thanks to the little blue lamp. Now, the only thing he needed to consider was how to survive the annihilation-level world-killing tribulation that was about to descend. Chin-yu's eyes flashed. After a long time, he let out a long breath. At this time, perhaps this was the only way. South Shine Nation's old ancestor. That's right, it was this old monster that gave Chin-yu an extremely bad premonition. Even so, he had saved his life. This old monster seemed to be very interested in him. Although he didn't know what this interest was, he didn't need to be a genius to know that it wasn't too wonderful. If this were any other time, Chin-yu would definitely think of a way to escape and hide as far away as possible. But now, he decided to do the exact opposite. Not only would he no longer run away, but he would do everything possible to stay by the side of the South Shine Nation's old ancestor until he helped him cross the world-killing tribulation. Just yesterday, Chin-yu had been distressed over how to escape. But today, he needed to think of a way to stay. Sure enough, the changes of the world were hard to predict. But in the end, this was all because he was weak. If he had the strength to resist the world-killing tribulation, then he would naturally be able to control his own destiny. My life is my own, not the heavens. To do this, it was more than just difficult. Chin-yu took a deep breath. At this time, his heart began to vigorously beat in his chest. His conviction to become stronger became even firmer. He closed his eyes, his thoughts incomparably clear, as if they had been washed by a spring of clear water, becoming purer. He had witnessed the might of the blue sea, had withstood the world-killing tribulation, had experienced all sorts of ups and downs, and his emotions had tumbled in his heart. Unknowingly, Chin-yu's state of mind had taken another step forward. A moment later, he opened his eyes. He felt that the current predicament in front of him was no longer urgent. Instead, what replaced it was a faint self-confidence. He would definitely be able to overcome this difficulty, go further, become stronger. Chin-yu stood up and entered the training room. He took out pills and swallowed them, closing his eyes to refine them. Tiny streams could gather into rivers and seas, grains of sand could pile up into mountains. There were no shortcuts in cultivation. Only by constantly working hard could one achieve oneself. Otherwise, no matter how many grand ambitions he had, they would all be nothing but empty words. It was unknown how Ming Siyuan and Yuan Tiangang communicated with the Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple. On the second day, both sides expressed their willingness to allow their juniors to participate in the refining of the Revival Good Fortune pill. However, in order to ensure their safety, the two of them asked Unilan to follow them to the capital city. After Unilan asked for instructions and obtained a response, the matter was settled. As for the special envoy sent by the royal family, he arrived just as the sun was setting in the west. The rewards of the South Shine Nation's official alchemy competition were very generous. At the very least, the harvests obtained by the top 10 cultivators were enough to make even divine soul powerhouses jealous. For instance, Chi knew. He had placed all of his attention on the treasure furnace remnant spirit. But when he received the rewards from the royal family's special envoy, he was stunned to discover that the rewards were shockingly great. There was no need to mention the treasure furnace remnant spirit. In addition, there were also two incomparably precious treasures, the Heavenly Origin Soul Fruit and the Sealed Dimension Ring. The Heavenly Origin Soul Fruit was the size of a child's fist. It bloomed for 1,000 years, withered for 1,000 years, and bore fruit for 1,000 years. After hanging for 1,300 years, it would turn a pale gold color and be considered ripe. After a cultivator swallowed this fruit, it could greatly enhance the strength of their soul. Even in the land of divinity and demons, it was incomparably precious. It was a transcendent divine fruit that could only be found through a stroke of fate. The sealed dimension ring was refined by cultivators and was called a spatial key. It was an extremely precious treasure. The land of divinity and demons was vast and boundless. Any one of the 7 great empires had trillions of territories. Generally speaking, it could be considered an incomparably massive space. In this space, there were many overlapping small spatial fragments. For instance, in the land of exiles, the place where the gold noble family lived was a spatial fragment. In the rumors, there were calamity immortals that could comprehend the great Tao of the heavens and earth and control 1 trillion rules. They could absorb spatial fragments and refine them into the boundless nothingness. What was nothingness? Perhaps not even calamity immortals knew. But, its most powerful attribute was that it was unknown. A spatial fragment that was refined into nothingness was incomparably safe. Its only entrance was the communication tool left behind when it was refined. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.